Hey y'all, it's Nicole. If you haven't seen my face here on YouTube before, I am the creator of the Lone Wolves Club here on YouTube, which is the name for the group of people that I want to be in a club with. I want to be in a club with your everyday, average, middle of the road Christian like myself. I don't lean too far to the right or the left when it comes to politics or religion. And I created my channel because I find that a lot of content made by Christian YouTubers tends to be very strict and very rigid. And I don't really adhere to that version of Christianity. I kind of believe in a more free and open and loving version of Christianity. So I create content to kind of react to my fellow Christian content creators and interject a different point of view. So this video piqued my interest because I have made content about both Paul and Morgan and Bethany, who is part of the Girl Defined ministry, if you will. She created Girl Defined with her sister Kristen, and Paul and Morgan are their friends. So Paul and Morgan are creating a series called 24 Hours with Blank. And they've already done one video where they collaborated with a preacher named Isaiah Saldivar, who is a whole can of worms. I made a video reacting to him too and doing a deep dive on him. But anyway, since I've done content on both Paul and Morgan and Bethany and Girl Defined, I thought it'd be interesting to kind of do a video where they are collaborating together. And again, since I don't really agree with either of their versions of Christianity, I kind of wanted to take in this video and see what kind of questions and issues they bring up and address as Christians. So anyway, this right here, this title card kind of shows the intention behind Paul and Morgan's series here. So it says, the division between Christians online is immense. In this series, we will press into tough conversations, disagree with love, and humanize the person behind the screen. Join as we discover the real lives of some of the most influential Christian figures. So let's continue on and see where this video takes us. I'm doing a live reaction, a blind reaction. I kind of thought it would be fun to give my in-the-moment reactions and kind of test this out. I haven't made any like true live reactions yet, so give me some grace here. Also, I'm very, very tired. I did not sleep well last night, so if I look and sound kind of like a zombie, that's why.
We had the opportunity to spend the day with Bethany from Girl Defined. Bethany runs Girl Defined with her sister Kristen. Their goal is to help modern girls live out God's timeless truth for womanhood.
They've received a lot of hate for their videos and strong stances. Is some of the criticism warranted? Are Kristen and Bethany legalistic Christians living in an echo chamber? What about the Christians they've started to upset?
We'll get an honest look into Bethany and Dave's marriage and the challenges of living in the spotlight while seeing some things very differently. This video is loaded. Get ready.
Modesty. Have your views changed?
They do want to see our relationship fall apart, even though they might be like, we hope you and Bethany stay together. They don't really hope that.
I mean, the pushback for growing probably comes more from Christians.
I saw a video, 33 million views reacting to you guys.
Girl Defined.
Girl Defined.
The new Girl Defined video.
It is conceivable that the haters are willing to tell you things about yourself that nobody else is willing to tell you.
What is happening?
What? Oh! We were painting very black lines.
I wish that y'all would more befriend people rather than choosing to view them as other, the kind of the bad ones.
I'll be honest, I'm not looking forward to this at all.
A lot of these Christians act like I'm literally like writing an erotic novel. Did he really shock y'all?
Yes,
Yeah.
they've shocked us.
I don't know. Neither of us just feel like we have to think the same to have like a really amazing marriage.
Are you still processing what just happened?
So that was kind of the little trailer that they made that piqued my interest, especially considering that Dave, Bethany's husband, kind of seems to be a bit more open-minded. And I'm not really surprised because when I did a video reacting to him and Bethany and their reaction of the Barbie movie, or their review rather of the Barbie movie, Dave definitely seemed more open-minded and like got that the Barbie movie, you know, wasn't trying to be ultra feminist, but Bethany, of course, is a traditional wife and wants to be subservient and all of that. So she was really offended by the movie, even though Dave wasn't. So I'm not surprised that Dave was kind of more open-minded. But anyway, this is why it kind of piqued my interest. Also, it really hurts my heart that so many of these Christian influencers live in San Antonio or Texas. Like the Girl Defined girls live in San Antonio. Brittany Dawn, another kind of sketchy Christian influencer, lives in San Antonio. I live in Austin, Texas, and I'm like, leave my state alone, okay? Texas doesn't want y'all. I don't claim y'all as fellow Texans. All right. Anyway, just had to throw that out there that I am continually surprised at how many of these influencers live in my neck of the woods, so to speak. So anyway, let's continue on and see San Antonio through their eyes.
Modesty? Did you already talk about modesty? No? Okay. Men's modesty.
I mean, men's modesty in our household has come a long way. There was like not that long ago, maybe like 2 years ago, I didn't want Dave to leave the house or like work out without a shirt on, swim without a shirt on. I just thought like, I don't want ladies seeing my man's big muscles. But it's like a change of perspective. It's more like he does it. It's okay to be an attractive person. You don't have to like hide your body completely, like to be modest. Not like necessarily where you're just like going around naked, but like just because you are attractive doesn't mean that's a problem. So now he runs and swims shirtless. Well, we'll get some tacos. It's like a random coffee shop, but it's like
Okay, I honestly thought that was a joke at first when she started talking about men's modesty, because I already knew that Bethany was very much about preaching, modest is hottest, and encouraging women to, cover up as much as possible and dress modestly, because heaven forbid you don't want to cause a guy to look at you lustfully or to be the reason why he stumbles. If you know with that phrase. I'm too tired to unpack it right now, but if you know, you know. But anyway, the fact that she was like, yeah, I don't want Dave to like swim shirtless or run shirtless is so weird to me. So it's like you expect your husband to get into the pool with like just a normal t-shirt on. Like that's just so odd. I mean, I know some people do it, but that's just so odd to me when you're swimming and like everyone else around you is, in their bathing suits and shirtless or in bikinis or one pieces or whatever. It's like we're all semi undressed together, like no one's checking out your husband. No one's like oogling your husband. Everyone else is in that same state of being like half dressed, and I don't think she used to worry about women like oogling Dave or hitting on him. I mean, I'm not saying he's an unattractive guy, but I feel like, women don't really do that as much as men do, right? Women aren't going to just like catcall or like oogle, some like random dude. I feel like that's something more that, dudes do. No offense, but just speaking the facts here. But anyway, glad she's cool with, Dave being able to run shirtless and swim shirtless. I mean, he's probably thankful too, because San Antonio weather is no joke. It is freaking hot in San Antonio. So I can only imagine how miserable he was for those few years, having to swim with a t-shirt on, having to go running with a t-shirt on, like, yikes.
one of the best, like, actual coffee spots.
2 more bacon, egg, and cheese on flour.
I also get a bacon, egg, and cheese.
Bacon and cheese on flour or something deep?
What's your name? Paul loves kombucha, and I want to please my husband.
Good man.
He does not want it.
I'll go 7.25.
Is that real?
What? He's questioning my scoring?
No. I'm serious. Like, do you do that as a joke, or do you really, in your brain, you're like, it's not a 7.5?
Does this seem like a joke to you, Dave?
Yeah. Okay, super hot for you.
This is so good. I got the carnitas and like an Angus one. If I'm rating these, even though Dave's making fun of me, both of these tacos.
I am making fun of you.
Both of these tacos are in the high 8s.
Hi, eights, come on!
That's a great score.
Those tacos did look good, I'm not gonna lie. You know, some of the best tacos that we have here in Texas are found in those, like, taco trucks that are just parked in a random gas station, like here, or parked at the side of the road. Those are always the best tacos. Forget going to any kind of big taco chain restaurant, just go to one of those random street taco trucks, and you will have the best tacos hands down. And now I really want tacos. I'm hungry too. I'm tired. I'm hungry. It's going to be a long live stream. And there are cafes and restaurants along the side, and it's really beautiful.
Here's a genuine inquiry, and I just want to hear your reaction to it.
Okay.
You, from talking to you briefly, would be the type of Christian that I would push back on.
Like, all the time. Well, you're not the only one.
So what?
Yeah, we started hanging out. I was like, hey, Dave, it's the cussing, man. Like, why are you cussing? And then I maybe would quote a Bible verse, like, let no unwholesome talk come out of your mouth.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, I didn't hear what he said. Did he just cuss at me? Oh, wow.
When someone says, well, what does the Bible say? I typically will hear a certain type of what I would call biblicism underlying that, a theory of the Bible that often we just take as self-evidently true. This is what the Bible is. A lot of this stuff is actually, it's more difficult when you actually get down to the conversations. I have found it's easy for each side. Oh, you're a fundamentalist. Oh, you're a progressive. It's easy to kind of hurl like, oh, progressives are just relativists, or fundamentalists are just dogmatists. But the reality is, I think we all have beliefs that we think are true, and we all have relativisms operating as well. When your view is one that the Bible should just be this clear thing we all sort of have access to, and the Holy Spirit just teaches us what to believe. Well, you got tons of groups out there who all claim the Holy Spirit as their teacher, coming to different conclusions.
A lot of groups, but you do see a lot of unity as well around the fundamental doctrines. And then there, to me at least, and then you see the splitting with the secondary issues, and that's one of the goals of this series. But yeah, man, you're a deep guy. Have you ever? You're familiar with the expression, "Don't be so open-minded that your brain falls out."
I've heard a version.
I feel like some deconstructionists would fit into that. Dave asked me to do the polar bath challenge. Cold water, go with the cold water. I'll be honest, I'm not looking forward to this at all.
No, I just start the timer so we're ready.
They clearly got over the male modesty issue here. Also, I didn't mean to pause on this screen, but anyway. I think it's interesting that Paul is like, yeah, Dave, you're the kind of Christian that I would push back against because of some of your views. So clearly Dave is okay with cussing, but Paul isn't, and neither is Bethany or Girl Defined. They had that little disclaimer pop up saying that like Dave's views on cussing don't reflect Girl Defined or Bethany's. So we can infer that Dave is kind of an outlier here by thinking that cussing is okay as a Christian. So again, I like that right off the gate, they're kind of already broaching topics that they don't see eye to eye on. But it concerns me when Paul says, have you ever heard that phrase, don't be so open-minded that your brain falls out? Yeah, I think some deconstructionists can fit into that category. So if you're not familiar, deconstruction is kind of a new phrase that's come about, and it describes Christians kind of like Dave, who are basically questioning the version of Christianity that they were taught when they were young, the version of Christianity that was presented to them, and they're kind of taking it apart, hence the word deconstruction. They're kind of taking apart their faith and kind of finding, what do I want to hold on to from my faith and what I was taught, and what do I want to let go of? So for example, if you grew up in the kind of church where they taught you to reject homosexual people, gay and lesbian people, because they are sinning. But as you grow up, you realize, well, but the Bible says to embrace everyone, and God is love. So I'm going to embrace these people rather than reject them. I'm going to hold on to the part of Christianity that says to love thy neighbor and to embrace people as they are. And I'm going to let go of what I was taught when it comes to rejecting people just because they're sinners. So that's an example of how deconstruction for me personally has kind of shown up in my life. I'm not saying everyone who goes through deconstruction has that kind of pivot when it comes to their views on homosexuality. But for me, that was a big part in kind of picking apart my faith, deconstructing my faith, if you will, and choosing what I want to hold on to and choosing what I want to let go of from the way that Christianity was presented to me. So it's concerning that Paul is already kind of brushing off the deconstructionists as people who are too open-minded, that they have lost their minds, right? That their brains have fallen out of their head, because that implies like you're dumb, basically. So Paul is fundamentalist, and if you don't know about that branch of Christianity, they're called fundamentalists because they believe in the fundamental truths of the Bible, and they take the Bible literally. So even like the weird mystical parts in the Bible or things that are no longer relevant, like how Israel will inherit the land of Canaan, that's not relevant anymore because the land of Canaan doesn't technically exist anymore. But fundamentalists will like hold on to that and think that all the things in the Bible are literally going to happen. So that is kind of the branch of Christianity that Paul is coming from. So anyway, let's continue on and see how their ice bath, polar plunge, deconstruction versus fundamentalism talk goes.
Okay.
Oh, he just dives right in. He's done this before.
Don't think about it.
I haven't done an ice bath, but I've done those cryo chambers. Which are, I'm not doing water with the you just like the cryo chamber, you just put it into it.
Bro, you got me for a minute,
Lost,
and I'm out.
Nitrogen activity.
It's absolutely horrible. I respect this man so much more. Hey.
I mean, he lasted like 2 minutes. That's impressive. I don't think I could last that long.
Here are some waters for y'all if you need them. Okay. We are going to put them on the hot seat. So if you know Paul and Morgan, we are going to get behind the scenes and ask them about their marriage.
We just wrapped up the podcast.
Yeah. So good. It's so interesting, like being together in person and like getting to talk about our similar experiences, especially when it comes to like negative online experiences. Like we don't often have that camaraderie of like, wow, someone who understands and gets us.
It's just so fun to get like the behind the scenes of y'all's whole inner workings of how, because we know how we do things at Girl Define, and it's a lot of similar stuff, different, but like getting the behind the scenes and talking about, you know, like the conflicts in marriage right before you record, how you are through those before you talk about the Lord.
I don't think that I could do anything like this with my sister. So
really, you and I, we've had some low. This is like the best. Probably the last 2 years or so are the most peaceful and the best Girl Define has ever been between us.
Yeah,
we went through a time where it was like a few years ago where we were like, we have to find a counselor. We have to find someone who specializes like in like ministry counseling,
family.
We just
working together, relationships.
We just could not like see eye to eye on like how to operate the ministry and like what to do, and we just both grew and matured somehow through that, and it just has.
And we changed the way we operate.
Yeah,
we've like established some very good, healthy patterns of.
So we didn't actually end up doing the counseling, but it's been like
it was a great idea.
Just sometimes the thought awesome.
No,
it's like really
seriously,
amazing.
Yeah.
It's like that. So I feel like that's why we can keep going, because we've gotten to a place where we are functioning super well.
Here was one debrief. They are very high energy. Like as soon as that camera goes on, and you heard Bethany's like intro.
Today on the Girl Define show, we are so excited to have Paul and Morgan.
Immediately she like dove in, talking a mile a minute, and I like it took me a minute to like process. And I was like, all right, I gotta like raise my energy a little bit.
Are you still processing what just happened? Hey, you can play things back half speed.
That's true. Maybe.
I listen to everything on speed and a half, but we tell people for our channel
that makes sense.
Like back half speed.
You do not want to listen to this on a speed and a half. I want to commend them though, on the record. They were here before we started. They were some of our inspirations and helped us get the ball rolling, and they are still going hard, and that is rare in this space. This is not an easy space to have longevity
in ministry alone, but then also YouTube.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't find like quite a good stopping point. I might also just cut that portion out. So if you see a skip there, they were basically just talking about the behind the scenes of recording with Girl Define because they all jumped on a podcast together. So anyway, I think it's interesting that Paul commends them for having longevity when it comes to still uploading on YouTube and still doing their ministry year after year. And the interesting thing is I have noticed a decline in engagement for Girl Defined. I feel like if you look at their past videos from like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, they were getting like 20,000 views, 30,000 views, 50,000 views. Now, when I look at their channel, they really get around like 3,000 to 4,000 views. And I'm definitely not putting that down at all because I only have like not even 100 subscribers and I get way less views on my videos. But I just started. I'm only like, this is like my 5th episode, full-length episode that I'm uploading. But I have heard from other YouTubers that that's actually not really good because they have quite a large following. I think they have, let me actually look up their subscriber count here on YouTube. Because I think one thing people don't recognize if you're not really like doing the whole YouTube game is that the amount of views that you need to have per video almost kind of need to be proportional to the amount of followers that you have. So if you have like 50,000 followers, you should like a good amount of views would be close to 50,000 views, right? Because that shows that most of your audience, if not all of your audience, is watching your content. But if you are such a big channel like Girl Defined, if you have so many followers but very little engagement or views, that actually doesn't really look good. So let's see. Okay, so they have 159,000 followers, and their most recent video was only uploaded 2 days ago, and it has yet to crack 1,000. I don't know if you can see, probably not. But yeah, it has yet to crack 1,000, which again is kind of a surprise for them because I feel like when I've seen other videos of theirs get uploaded, they crack 1,000 views within like a day. The next video has 2.4 thousand, 2.9 thousand, 2.5 thousand, 3.9 thousand. This is all from like a month, 3.5, 4.1, 5,000. So yeah, so the fact that their views are kind of declining down to the low thousands is not good. It shows that they, while they may have a lot of subscribers, they're not really, I don't know, they're just not really attracting people who want to watch their content, basically. And I know that sounds bad, but it's kind of the truth. So anyway, I just thought that was an interesting tidbit I wanted to throw out there.
Yeah. Ooh. I mean, I feel like for us, it's been like having.
He's still going.
Like knowing why we're here, because it's like now that we're both moms, like that's a priority and that's really important. And so we've had to really adjust. So we actually have 2 other people that work for us.
Like even for us, something we've kind of struggled with at times is we've been on the platform for 7 years. We're not the same people.
Yeah.
And even like some of our views, like I would say, hopefully, and in so many ways we've grown and we've matured as believers, but some of our views have shifted a little bit.
Sure.
Girl Defined now versus Girl Defined 5 years ago. You guys have gotten some pretty heavy criticism, and you guys know, honestly, can we just talk about that? They have been through it. They have been through it. Like, man.
Like the most hated Christian channel out there, I feel like.
Really? That sounds, that's not to say like you guys just get it, man. And so one thing I'm wondering, modesty. You guys have some videos where you are now versus where you were, say, 5 years ago. And actually one of our patrons said to ask you guys that. Have your views changed on modesty?
We have a great podcast that we recorded on that. What was that? Oh, it was called How Our Views on Modesty Have Changed.
There we go.
They have changed. But I think they've changed more so in the fact that we were painting very black lines in scripture of like modesty is this, it isn't this, and drawing these lines and these boundaries and saying this is what's biblical and this is what isn't. And we've come to realize the scripture doesn't actually draw those lines that we were drawing. It talks about modesty and women should care about it, but not in the ways that we were drawing lines. Like our version of modesty wasn't 100% biblical, I guess. So coming to terms of just realizing like our perspective was our opinion, but not biblical truth. And we've even changed in some of our opinions of what we believe about modesty and our views on just, I don't know, like what would you add?
Well, I mean, we don't even think the same on it exactly now. Like we've changed, I think, especially for me, like getting married. So I was like single for much longer than you. And so I had all these ideas of like, oh, modesty and men and like all of this stuff. And then getting married to Dave and him sharing more of like his actual thoughts with me, and then me really asking myself, why do I feel like this certain thing is modest and this isn't? And something for me even recently that I've really realized is that I had this idea that almost like if like attraction was almost like immodest. And so for me, I wanted to wear more like looser clothing, not really show the fact that I was a woman, because I thought, oh, that's like part of the problem. And almost like even as a married person, that you should never even think anyone else or any other human is like attractive. And so I've realized like it's okay. Like I can be out in the world and see a man who is attractive and just be like, oh, that's an attractive man, and move on with my day. I don't have to be like, oh my gosh, well, or that Dave will see obviously there are other beautiful women in the world, you know. Obviously what he does with that is a different story, but like he can see other women in the world and be like, they're beautiful, and move on with his day. So that has been like part of the growth journey for me, and I think that's
So a lot to unpack in that short little soundbite. That was a great question, by the way, whoever sent that in, one of their patrons, I guess, as they said, that was a great question, and I'm glad it was asked. I do love that they had to plug their podcast episode and be like, well, we did a whole episode all about it. And the funny thing is they've actually approached this topic a lot of times. They kind of tend to recycle their content. You'll notice if you're like scrolling through their videos like I have, because I have consumed way too much of their content to try to make videos about them, but they tend to kind of recycle the same content and the same ideas. So they've definitely addressed this before, but I think it's really interesting what Kristen said, and I appreciate her self-awareness and her transparency of saying, the reason why we've started to rethink our views on modesty is because we realized that we were interpreting the Bible in these very black and white ways, where there was actually more kind of gray area in the Bible, and we were interpreting it through our lens rather than looking at the truth of what the Bible says. That's kind of my way of interpreting what she said. And so, yeah, I appreciate that honesty and that self-awareness. And I think that's why, kind of backtracking a bit to when Paul was saying like, oh, you guys get so much hate, like y'all just go through it. You just go through the ringer. I mean, these girls have been like mocked and reviled on many, many different YouTube channels. I'm not the first. I mean, I'm not mocking or reviling them, but I am also commenting on them. And I think it's because of what Kristen just touched on, that they have such staunch and strict views on Christianity and the Bible that it causes offense not only to non-believers who already think that Christianity is kind of ridiculous and hardcore, but then when you tack on things like, women need to be modest and you can't show any skin and you need to wear loose clothing and you need to whatever and blah, blah, blah. I mean, non-Christians think that's ridiculous and silly, right? So not only have they like kind of offended and pushed out non-believers by having such strict and rigid views of God and the Bible and Christianity, but they've also offended other Christians like myself who don't have those same strict and staunch views of Christianity. And so I think the self-awareness of Kristen is really helpful, because maybe she can start to identify that, hey, the reason why we get so much pushback is because we are trying to basically judge people and make all of these strict rules and impose them upon people, even though the Bible doesn't have that same level of strictness, if that makes sense. It's like they're taking the Bible to the extreme and they're trying to act like they know it all, that they're like the word of God, that they're experts on these topics. And I think that's what offends people, is because it's like, who are you to tell me what the Bible says, right? Kind of like they were talking about earlier, with Dave, that like every Christian has the Holy Spirit inside of them, right? We all have the ability to read the Bible and interpret it for ourselves. And I think some Christians get offended when Christians like the Girl Defiant girls try to tell them, no, I'm going to tell you what the Bible says. It's like, well, I can read it for myself. I can interpret it for myself, right? So anyway, I think that's why they get so much pushback and so much hate and so many people challenging them, because they try to act like they're experts on all of these biblical topics when they aren't really. These girls aren't theologians. They're not biblical scholars. They're not even experts when it comes to the things that they talk about. For example, Bethany likes to talk a lot about sex and her sexual journey and stuff like that, but she didn't learn how sex worked until she was 20, and she self-admitted that on a podcast. So I think that's why it also kind of offends people when they try to act like experts on these various topics, where the world just kind of sees two very sheltered girls who grew up in a really strict environment, and then they're trying to impose that same level of strictness upon other people, if that makes sense. So a lot to unpack there, but let's keep going.
Contributed toward some of the change in conversation as well for us.
Yeah.
Let me go a step further. Look at someone like Joshua Harris. You guys are obviously familiar with Joshua Harris. He looks back at his past, and he went so far as to make apologies for it, say this was harmful because my views on purity culture, they caused harm to people. And now he's like one of the leaders in the deconstruction movement. When you look back, are you like inclined to say, man, we caused harm because we made it look too black and white, or are you more like, no, we still believe that, but we could have worded it a little better?
We haven't issued an apology.
No, we haven't. In our podcast episode, it was us just saying this is how we've grown. This is how God has changed us and even our understanding of like interpreting scripture and being careful to not put our own interpretation on what scripture is saying and adding to it. But even looking back on like the way that we approach modesty, we would even say, I remember even in our little booklet that we wrote on modesty, we were very intentional to say, we're just showing you examples of what we do, but this isn't what you have to do. The podcast episode we did on it was us just saying like, this is how the Lord has grown us. We've always from the beginning of Girl Defined said, go to the word yourself. Like even with the modesty, we were like, go to the word.
Well, can I just say I saw the Project Modesty video. I think it's been removed. And for some of the reasons you were describing.
It can be really hard to find modest shirts right off the rack, but with a little creativity, you can make a lot of them work. Low-cut shirts. You can add a cami underneath, you can add a scarf on top, or a button up underneath. And shirts that aren't fixable, just stitch them. A good saying is, when in doubt, go without.
I kind of liked it. I got it, because you guys did get specific. I didn't feel from me watching it that it's like you have to do exactly what, because you guys were like, you can dress modestly and
fashionably. It was like dressing modestly and fashionably. We were trying to inspire. Like, look at how you compare clothes.
Was it a little
shorts? Those outfits were scary. That was like 8 years ago.
Yeah, right. But was it maybe a little cheesy? Like, sure, some could say it was, or the.
We haven't been any cheesy.
Okay, now we're offended. We thought it was really good.
But no, you guys were showing like, if you're gonna wear this shirt, if you want to wear it, maybe wear this type of shirt underneath it. If you're gonna wear this, and I'm like, it's just practical advice. So but also I appreciate you guys saying like, we've grown in this way, but we cannot expect a Girl Defined apology tour.
It's not gonna happen.
So that brings me to another reason why the Girl Defined girls have received a lot of flack and a lot of pushback, like they hinted at just a few minutes ago. And it's because of this very reason, because they have never publicly apologized or owned up to the fact that a lot of the content they created, which most of it is still up. Like I said, they took down this like Project Modesty video, which I guess was supposed to be a parody of Project Runway, now that I think about it, which is a popular, fashion design show. So they were kind of inspired and made their own version of it, like the video that, just played. So I guess they took that down. Again, I'm not sure why, maybe because they got a lot of flack and a lot of, hate comments on it or whatever. But the fact that they have never apologized or recognized the harm that some of their content has created within the Christian community is troubling for me, because again, they have 160,000 followers on YouTube. They have how many do they have on Instagram? They've also been on Instagram for a long time. But my point is that when you have such a big public platform, and this is something I'm thinking about, like as I'm starting my YouTube journey, is that when you have such a big audience and you have such a big reach or influence, then I think you do have a responsibility to kind of own up to your past mistakes and own up to, some ways that you might have failed your audience. So they have 71,000 followers on Instagram. So, not a small platform at all on either of those accounts. So again, quite a lot of people are under their influence, just like if you went to a church and you're under your pastor's influence or spiritual leadership or guidance, whatever you want to call it. And if your pastor said something that was not biblical or that maybe led people astray, we would expect them to issue a public apology to their congregation, right? So I think in a similar vein, I think Girl Defined does owe people an apology for the way that they pushed purity culture and modesty so hard that it kind of trapped women in that cycle of guilt and shame that purity culture traps a lot of women in. And if you don't know what I mean by purity culture, it was a movement kind of born in the 90s and early 2000s where purity was emphasized above all cost, right? So like a woman, particularly women, men too, but particularly women were expected to protect their virginity at all cost and save themselves for marriage. And the Girl Defined girls even went so far as to save their first kiss for marriage. Bethany has like a whole video about that. I'm sure Kristen rather does too. And purity culture is harmful for women because, again, it places basically a woman's sole worth is her virginity. And that is a sentiment that not a lot of women agree with, nor do I think that's a sentiment that is true. People are way more valuable than whether they're a virgin or not, right? That's inconsequential to me. That doesn't determine someone's worth as a human. It definitely does not determine a woman's value, and it doesn't make her any less, marriageable or wife material if she slept with people before marriage, in my opinion. I think God redeems all, right? There's grace for the journey. God redeems all. But the Girl Defined girls were so hardcore about modest is hottest, save your first kiss for marriage, blah, 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 that a lot of women felt shamed and blamed if they did things other than that, right? If they, heaven forbid, made out with their boyfriend before they got married, or heaven forbid, they wore a shirt that was a little bit low cut. And so that's why they've also received a lot of flack and a lot of pushback, because they perpetuated these shameful ways of thinking about a woman's body, about a woman's sexuality. They equated so much of a woman's worth to her virginity and to abstaining from sex. And again, that really made a lot of Christian women within their circle feel, isolated and alienated if they had maybe messed up in certain ways. And so the fact that they haven't apologized and have kind of glossed over the harm that purity culture has caused a lot of women and men. I know men who, for example, one of my good friends opened up to me and said that her husband felt guilty 5 years into their marriage when he thought about wanting to have sex with her, his wife. So he would feel guilty whenever he thought about having sex with her or wanted to have sex with her. And they were 5 years into their marriage. So that is the shame and blame that purity culture created, was that sex is wrong. Your body is wrong. You shouldn't explore your body. You shouldn't masturbate. You shouldn't dress, immodestly. You shouldn't show any skin, right? And so that kind of warped a lot of people's views about their sexuality and about their own body. And so a lot of people had to go to therapy to kind of deal with that, go to couples counseling to deal with that, kind of process and work through the shame and blame when it comes to a very natural and human thing, which is the desire to want to have sex. So anyway, I think it is interesting that they will not apologize. And again, I think that is the cause of more flack and pushback that they get, because they are unapologetic and are ignoring the harm that they have done by adding to the whole purity culture chatter and emphasizing that so much on their channel.
All right.
And what does it fix? What does it fix?
Right.
What does it fix except for appease the haters? Which that's not our goal.
No, they want you on the stake after that. They don't
It's
we
never
will
gonna be
share
enough.
how we've
The
grown
stake
and changed.
fire.
What's it called? The
Oh,
stake.
no,
The grill. They want you gone.
burned at the stake.
Yeah, they want you to do what Josh Harris did. They don't just want you to apologize.
Yeah.
They want you to completely deconstruct and have rainbow flags and do what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
So
We're not doing that.
No intentions to deconstruct
No,
from Girl Defined.
Not gonna happen.
And that is an example of why I personally don't really like these women and find their personalities kind of unlikable, to be honest, is that they're so staunch and rigid in their beliefs, and they take things to such extremes where it's like no one was even going there. Like y'all just went there in your mind and you made it a bigger deal than it needed to be. And I think that's a lot of people's criticisms with fundamentalist or really hardcore Christians is like, look, y'all make things way bigger of a deal than they actually are, right? Like a lot of people would argue with the whole pronoun debate, right? Is it really a big deal to call people what they want to be called? I don't think so. But Christians like them make it such a big deal. It's like the end of the world if someone asks you to use, the pronouns that they want to be called. And so for me personally, this is again why I don't really like them, because they get so extreme and hyperbolic with statements like, oh, the haters don't want you to just apologize. They don't want us to just apologize. They want us gone, and they want us to deconstruct, and they want us to wave rainbow flags and blah, blah, blah. No one wants that. I don't want that from the Girl Defined girls. Again, would I love to see them apologize and kind of own up to their past mistakes in the way that they have kind of ostracized even their fellow Christians? Yeah, I think that would be great. And I think that would be really vulnerable and transparent and honest. I mean, of course, they talk about how much they've grown, but I think along with that, what's the harm in just tacking on a little apology and being like, hey, as we've grown, we've kind of come to realize that we were a bit too intense. We were a bit too black and white with our past beliefs. And we want to apologize if we have influenced you or inspired you to believe something that later on caused a lot of shame and guilt in your life. We are so sorry that we, might have influenced you to feel that way, to feel shame or blame or anything like that. Because again, when you have such a big platform, you don't realize you are truly influencing people, and people look to you for guidance and for clarity and for advice. And so I think it's weird that they would then be like, well, we're not telling you to do those things. We're not telling you how to dress. We're not telling you how to be. We're just saying what we do. And it's like, but if people are following you, if people are influenced by you, if people are inspired by you, then of course they're going to do as you do. They're going to do what you say, right? So I think it's silly of them to kind of try to backpedal and weasel their way out of the responsibility they have to their audience by saying things like, well, it's not like we're telling you what to do. It's like you're influencers, right? That's literally what influencers do. They influence people to think like them, to act like them, to vote like them, to believe like them, to whatever like them. So anyway, this is just another facet of them where I feel like their true colors are coming out, and I personally don't really like what I see.
We're not done with you, Dave.
He said he's not done with y'all either. So did he really shock y'all? What did he shock y'all with?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dave shocked us.
We were shocked.
What was shocking?
How different you guys are.
Yeah.
Because you seem very much at peace with him working through this stuff and figuring out like where he stands on things. What do you think? Why do you think you're so at peace with that?
I mean, from the beginning, honestly, like a huge goal of mine in marriage was to not try to control my husband, and I had seen that done like so much, and it seems like there's a happy marriage on the front, all of these conservative values and all of this, like going to the word and stuff. But then behind the scenes, there was like a lot of anxiety or just like a lot of dysfunction. I didn't really care about Dave, like putting like, I mean, I did, but like, I didn't want him to just appear a certain way for like my own ego or image or whatever. Yeah. And he grew up in a family where he knows the Bible frontwards and backwards, like he
said he's read it multiple times.
Yeah. Even just like in the years that we've been married, he's, like he commits to something, he does it. So he did like 2 years back to back where he did like Bible reading plan, and he like never, like he absolutely finishes it. And like we'll do like Bible trivia games, and he like knows, like he knows all of it. He's like extremely like highly churched, like highly in the word. And the like fruit of some of that, like just the anxiety and the struggle and the just like, I don't know, like it's just been difficult. Dave is someone who like is constantly seeking outside advice, and the mentors, our pastors, the men in his life, I highly respect and I think are really amazing. And so I like, to me, he's a man like that is like very full of integrity. And so instead of having an interest in reading certain books or learning from certain teachers and me just being like, I don't like that, don't show that to me, I want to be more like inviting of that and being like, hey, I want to know, share that with me. And to be honest, like who he is as a man now, and like his, like, I don't know, how he loves me, how he treats our family, his stability as a leader has only improved. And so like, I feel like I have a better life.
Yeah.
So I guess it's something I'm not really afraid of, because I just, maybe some of this practical stuff that he's learning now was missed as he was growing up. And so it's almost like rewinding. And although not all of it's like from a Christian perspective, to me, it seems like it's been really beneficial in his life. And now we don't listen to all the same things and read all the same things, and we don't approach how we if I want peace in my life, I am very much like go to the word, and like my relationship with Christ is where I find that. And that's not always the case for him, but like it doesn't bother me that much, which sounds crazy.
Yeah. But how do you feel like it will affect kids, like your all's kids, as they start to get older, start asking questions, like
So there's a joke going around in certain communities on the internet that are kind of dedicated to following the Girl Defined girls and Dave and all of them. And the joke is that Dave is awakening, right? That he's awakening out of this fundamentalist mindset that he was raised in, because he was also raised in a very strict home. Again, just to give you a peek into that, he did not know what sex was, period, until he was 18. Most people learn about sex, when you're kids, right? You start with age-appropriate books about the birds and the bees. And then if you go to public school, you start sex ed usually when you're like in middle school, right? So like 11, 12, 13 is when we all first kind of start learning about sex. Those of us who went to like a traditional public school here in America. But Dave was homeschooled, same as Bethany. They were both homeschooled. So again, Bethany self-admitted on a podcast. It's called the Heaven in Your Home podcast. I'll link that episode if you're curious. But she self-admits that she did not know how sex worked until she was 20. She knew what it was, but she didn't know how it worked. And the way that she found out was by looking at an age-appropriate book for children that she was babysitting. She saw the book just sitting on, the coffee table or in the bedroom or whatever, flipped through it, and that's how she learned, from the picture book meant for kids. Dave, in a similar vein, did not know what sex was until he was 18. So it makes sense to me that someone who grew up in a very sheltered environment like Dave did would be questioning the way that he was brought up and what he was taught about religion and what he was taught about Christianity. To me, that's a more traditional path. I think Bethany and Kristen are kind of outliers in the fact that they're not willing to challenge their upbringing. They're not willing to be open-minded to another point of view. They're not willing to apologize. They're not willing to admit that they're wrong. So yeah, I think they're kind of a bit outlier. I mean, to be honest, Dave is kind of the outlier among, the rest of them, because Paul and Morgan kind of seem to be in that same vein of not really, wanting to question people or hear outside opinions. Don't be fooled by the fact that they're collaborating with Bethany, because again, Bethany is very similar to that, as you might have picked up. So yeah, to me, it seems like a more logical path that Dave is on, where if you grew up in a really strict environment and that was all you knew, of course, once you're free to be on your own and read what you want to read and watch what you want to watch and learn what you want to learn and talk to who you want to talk to, and you're no longer living in an echo chamber, it makes sense to me that you would want to learn from other people and see what the world is like, beyond the four walls that you were raised in. So, I mean, I am happy, though, to hear Bethany say that she's okay with the fact that Dave is kind of on his own path with his faith and that he looks to resources beyond the church. I've heard him in past videos mention that he is in therapy and he goes to like a real, like legit therapist, because he's mentioned EMDR before, which is a type of trauma-based therapy. Or it's not trauma-based, but it's like centered around like unpacking your trauma from your childhood. I've done EMDR therapy myself, and so I know a bit about it. So it's something that like a legit certified therapist has to walk you through. Not just anyone knows how to administer EMDR sessions. So he goes to like a legit therapist, whereas Bethany, whenever she needs help, she looks for people who are like Christian counselors. And she even admitted in one video that she likes the kind of therapist that Dave go to because they go a lot deeper to the root of certain issues than her Christian counselors do. And I'm like, well, of course, obviously, because while Christian counselors might be great moderators and facilitators, and they might be good at asking certain questions and good at listening, they don't understand the psychological aspect of things, right? They don't understand like family of origin issues and how that might have shaped your upbringing, or not might have, but does shape your upbringing, does make you the kind of human that you are with the kind of traumas that you may have. They don't go into like how some people are genetically dispositioned to have certain mental health issues like depression, anxiety, blah, blah, blah. If it runs in your family, right, it can be passed down genetically. Therapists know what's going on psychologically in your brain, so they can kind of unpack that a bit more and go a bit deeper than Christian counselors do. So anyway, encouraging to see that she enjoys learning from Dave and that she's okay with the fact that they're kind of on different paths when it comes to their faith. But I'm really curious to hear her answer to Morgan's question about what will they do as their kids get older.
I ask him questions and about the Bible or about just like, whatever, something very stereotypical that like Dave and you might see totally different on. How do you guys think you'll approach that?
Yeah. Well, he actually initiated and led us switching churches. So we were going to kind of like a basic Bible believing, non-denominational type of church. And it's the church I grew up in. I was very comfortable there. And he wasn't super excited about it. And he really was the one who initiated us leaving. So now we go to a small Lutheran church, which was so different than anything I grew up with. But that's kind of like as much as he might read all these books about philosophy or whatever, I don't know, all this other stuff, he is like the one who led our family into this church that is amazing. And I have learned and grown like so much as a Christian. And it's a place where I'm so excited to raise my kids and to raise a family. And I think that if I had tried to control that, like, no, I want to stay at our previous church, like that's scary to move churches. And now we're in this Lutheran church with all of this liturgy and, like infant baptism and all these crazy things. We wouldn't have made this transition if I had like dug my heels in, but I was excited about it. And it was, even though it was a little scary, and that's like all because of Dave's leadership, And so I feel like our kids are in a wonderful place. Like, although we might not agree on everything theologically or how we go about practically getting help, like he to me is someone who is like very much has like a true, genuine faith. It just looks really different from mine. But I view my kids as having like an incredible dad. And I think they're going to be like extremely stable and not manipulated into the faith, or not like coerced into like, you need to look this way and act this way. And then when they get older, like ditch it. I think they have a dad who's extremely authentic and genuine. And in the long run, to me, that's like going to go so much further than him looking like this, ideal Christian man, whatever that is. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Morgan's like, no.
Hey, it's your old marriage. You gotta figure it out.
How are you holding up, Bethany?
Good. Can I get y'all a snack? Oh, look what I have. Look, does anyone need a bar?
Oh, ho. We got bars.
I mean, between the two of us, for sure, like who's influenced the other more, like in our relationship, for sure, Dave's influenced me more. Okay. Like I've for sure become more like him. Yeah. And so I guess less kind of like my family, less how I was raised.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Bethany just self-identified that, because I was actually going to say the same thing. I feel like when Bethany is around Kristen, her sister, she seems a lot more like rigid and strict and like fundamentalist again. But when she's, with Dave or like with Morgan and Paul away from Kristen, she seems like that more kind of like free and like open-minded and accepting kind of Christian. Whereas like just a few minutes ago, she was saying like, oh, the haters want us to deconstruct and they want us to wave rainbow flags and they want us to blah, blah, blah. And then here, just like a few minutes later, away from Kristen, she's like, oh yeah, like I'm glad that Dave exposes me to different things. And I'm glad that he influences me to, be more open-minded and be more free and be more whatever. And so I feel like Bethany is still largely kind of figuring herself out. I mean, she's only 35. She's only like a year or two older than me. So I get it that like sometimes in our 30s, we're still kind of figuring ourselves out. You know, I mean, I think the journey of figuring yourself out is a lifelong one, to be honest, right? Because we're all going to look very different as we age. I mean, the person I am now at 33 is not going to be the person I am at 43 and 53 and 63 and so on. You know, I'm going to grow and change. And of course, I may change my mind on things or my opinion on things, or I may learn different things that shape who I am. But I think Bethany is a little behind on that journey of kind of figuring herself out because she grew up in such a sheltered family, because she grew up in such a rigid, strict environment. I feel like she is almost a little bit delayed and stunted in her growth. So to me, a lot of her revelations and a lot of her epiphanies are kind of ones where I'm like, well, yeah, but like people already know that. Like when she says like, oh, I think it's great to be influenced and open-minded and, you know, have other people like inspire me to be open-minded. It's like, yeah, we all already kind of know that, right? Like most people in our 30s would agree that, you know, we like to be challenged and we like to have different perspectives and stuff like that. And, you know, when she says other things about like exploring her sexuality and stuff like that. I mean, that's like a whole other video that I made, but especially in that video, it was very apparent to me kind of how stunted she was when it comes to kind of figuring things out. For example, she made a video about like why she no longer asks people permission on what she can do in the bedroom with her husband. And to me, as a 30-year-old person, when I got married, it never occurred to me to ask anyone what I should and shouldn't do in the bedroom with my husband. I was like, I'm 30 years old. I'm an adult. I can do what I want. And so the fact that she was also 30 when she got married, we have that in common. The fact that when she, you know, felt like she needed to ask people permission on what to do kind of shows me that stunted, delayed kind of mindset, if that makes sense. So anyway, all of that to say, it's really interesting that she can kind of self-identify how Dave challenges her to be open, and that he definitely is kind of leading the way in that regard and making her more open-minded. And again, interesting to see how she kind of differs from how she is with Kristen to how she is with Paul and Morgan, because she would kind of push back and like tease Morgan, like, oh, Morgan, you're probably thinking, no way would I be cool with having like different, you know, views of faith than my husband, you know. So yeah, I think it's funny with like Paul and Morgan, she tries to be like the cool Christian, the like edgy, open-minded Christian, but then when she's with Kristen, she seems more like rigid and strict.
Is that hard for your family to see?
I think they're just like, oh, Dave and Bethany, they're random.
I know, two crazy kids.
Everyone is so far has been like super respectful and like very much like, you know, as adults, like respecting each other's views. Maybe if we were like ditching the faith or something, but it's like we're still super strong Christians. It just looks different in some of the gray areas and secondary issues. I want my views to be challenged because I don't just want to live in a certain way or believe things because I've always believed them and they're like not actually true or beneficial. There might be a better way to live.
I have a feeling that like a lot of people who watch your stuff, who hate watch your stuff, are like, she just lives in an echo chamber. She's not surrounded by anyone with differing opinions. I think they would be shocked to know. Like, your own husband has very drastically different opinions than you, and you're living under the same roof with him and being challenged, and you guys are pushing each other. And I think that's very interesting to learn about you. I didn't know that.
So the interesting thing is when, you know, Morgan was just calling out like, oh yeah, like I think your haters think that you live in an echo chamber and that you don't want to hear from anyone else. So I recently interacted with Girl Defined on one of their accounts. I know, or their main account, their Instagram account. And I know so many influencers say like, don't interact with these people, don't whatever. I did it because I can't help myself. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just saying I couldn't help myself. So spare me the lecture of not interacting with them. But it was a reel that Kristen made where she talked about how she struggled with masturbation as a woman and blah, blah, blah. And so I left a comment which got like over 100 likes. And I kind of pointed out like, hey, like, I think that's like an antiquated way of viewing masturbation. I think God created our bodies and we're free to explore them. And, you know, masturbation actually helps us figure out what we like and don't like sexually so that we can communicate it to our spouse when it's time to be intimate with them, especially if you are saving yourself for marriage and you know, you're going to be a virgin on your wedding night and you don't really know anything about sex. I think it would be beneficial for you to explore your body and figure out what you like and don't like so that you can communicate that to someone. But anyway, I left a comment to that effect that got like 100 likes. And then they responded. I don't know who, because again, Girl Defined is both of them, but they responded and they were like, hey, check out this podcast that we had all about masturbation. And I was like, no, I'm not going to bother because respectfully, I know your viewpoints on it. I know my viewpoints on it. I know we don't agree. So, you know, I respectfully declined to listen to your podcast episode. So I commented that. And then lo and behold, a few weeks later, I noticed, wait, I haven't seen any of their content pop up on my Instagram feed because, of course, I follow them to kind of keep an eye out on things I may want to comment on or interact with. And I hardly do, right? I hardly do. I think that's the first time I may have interacted with them ever on their actual account. So yeah, lo and behold, a few weeks later, I noticed their info, their stuff isn't popping up on my feed. And I go and look and find out that I have been blocked by them. And this was recent, as in like literally like a few days ago, I found this out. So to that, I want to say, no, you don't want to be challenged. No, you don't want to be open-minded. You want to keep living in an echo chamber because it's one thing to listen to your spouse, right? Your spouse is your spouse. Of course, you're going to listen to them. Of course, you're going to be more open-minded to them. But when it comes to other people outside of your community, right? Outside of your family, outside of your friends, outside of your bubble, other Christians who have different points of view, because I'm a Christian too. When it comes to other Christians who have a different point of view, you don't want to hear from those people, right? And that's way more challenging than listening to your spouse and their differing opinions, I would argue. Because again, you already love your spouse. You're already inclined to want to hear from them, to want to be open-minded to them. But I think it's a bigger challenge to be open-minded to people outside of your bubble and outside of your circle. And that Bethany does not want to do, because I don't know who blocked me, right? Because the account is run by both of them. Maybe Kristen was the one who blocked me, but the fact that like Bethany was okay with that if they talked about it shows me that no, they don't want to have anyone challenge their point of view.
Play with our family and everyone's like at the same level as us. So
Dude, no, this will just be fun, man.
18 weeks pregnant. Can I beat them?
Baby number 2 is gonna be a big boy.
No, he's tiny.
I'm not sure. I'm going to show that they're like wholesome Christians.
Actually, that's great. That'll make your conversations better if we get a little jumpy exercise.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Okay, Bethany, we've talked a little bit about like how you and Kristen have grown in your views and whatnot, and I feel like you all get pushback for growing.
I mean, the pushback for growing probably comes more from Christians.
Yeah.
Because they're like used to us being a certain way, and they like the more conservative black and white version of us. We've been accused of, like conservative Christians are like, we can't follow y'all anymore. You're basically like becoming feminists. And it's like, have you seen like all the stuff we're posting?
Yeah.
That's kind of like a big claim. Like, you guys are becoming feminists. What are they going off of?
I don't know. Like, if we're not super hard on everything, like how a dating relationship be pure, just like anything, it's like, it's not necessarily like feminist stuff, but they just view us, if we're not ultra conservative, then we have to be like feminist, if we're not ultra conservative,
Right.
then we have to be deconstructing. Like, if we're not,
There's no middle ground.
yeah,
in
there's
their
no middle
minds.
ground. It's like very, very extreme. But at the end of the day, we're not trying to be like the Holy Spirit for people and tell people what they can and can't do. People have specifically accused me of being like, oh, you're really becoming, more of a feminist and stuff. Like, oh, Bethany, she's taking steps. She's almost there. And I always crack up because I'm like, what? Like, I am still like an extremely passionate like Christian. Like everything I do is like coming from an extremely passionate Christian view. Like I don't know what it is that makes them like think that.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
So
That's kind
weird.
of what that's what the haters are hoping for. They
Yeah.
want you to be there. So they're like, she's almost there. And then the Christians are like, she's there. She's too far gone.
But like the haters.
So this reminds me of something that doesn't exist a lot within the kind of Christian circles that Bethany and Kristen and Paul and Morgan live in, which is nuance. Nuance is not welcome in these kinds of circles. And you're seeing that play out right here. And it's really funny because Bethany herself lacks nuance sometimes, or a lot. But then she gets mad at her fellow Christians when they also lack nuance. So by that, I mean, here she is like kind of complaining almost about the fact that like some Christians think she's, too feminist now because she hasn't mentioned it yet. I'm sure she will here in a second, but she has a whole other account separate from Girl Defined, run just by her, called The Intimate Wife. And on that, she talks a lot about how, women need to explore their sexuality within marriage, of course. Don't be getting crazy and touching yourself and all of that when you're not married. Actually, I don't know if she even thinks that masturbation is okay in marriage. Probably not. You probably just can't touch yourself, period. But anyway, on that account, she talks a lot about like women prioritizing their sexuality, women prioritizing having a pleasurable experience when they have sex, women learning what works for them, communicating it to their husbands, not settling for like a mediocre or boring sex life. So I think that's why a lot of her more conservative Christian followers are thinking that she's too feminist and too out there now. And then kind of like I joked with Dave, some people joke that he's awakening, and people are joking about that with Bethany too. Like, oh, she's awakening. She's almost there. She's deconstructing. And it's like, girl, no one wants you to lose your religion. I haven't seen anyone be like, I want Bethany to stop being a Christian and to lose her religion and to fall away from the faith and to leave the church. No one wants that. Those people recognize that your faith is really important to you, no matter what version of Christianity you adhere to, no matter what world religion you adhere to. Your faith is deeply personal and important to you. So no one wants you to fall away from the church, Bethany. No one wants you to leave your religion. People just want you to dial it back a bit. At least coming from me, I just want her to dial it back a bit and stop giving Christianity a bad name and stop making it black and white and stop making it like us versus them, because that same lack of nuance that Bethany has is also the same lack of nuance that the Christian she's complaining about has. So it's like you're kind of the pot calling the kettle black. You are getting mad at people who lack nuance with you. You're getting mad that people won't see you in shades of gray, that people see you as this or that. But yet you yourself also see the world and see other Christians and important topics like purity culture and stuff like that as black and white. So anyway.
They would only be happy if it were like a full deconstruction, and then like going out and like hating Girl Defined or making apology videos or whatever. It's like, I'm.
Whoa, that was
Why is it so fun for boys to like throw
I
things on
don't
your
know.
head?
But Luca is literally obsessed with throwing things at us. And I was like,
Why do you want to destroy us?
see my life flash before my eyes.
I got a question on that.
Yeah.
So, we're talking about the haters. So they say something like Kristen and Bethany's views are still problematic. And again, these are the hate videos.
Yeah.
Still problematic, but I am seeing progress with them. From my research, I'm seeing a trend of that. How does that make you feel? And is that a good thing that they're saying that?
I don't take that as a compliment. Well, because what do they want? What is progress to them? We are really trying to have more of like the gospel is the most important thing. Secondary issues, like instead of saying like this is the way, either that's our opinion or and I guess they view that as progress, moving away. I guess they view that as moving away from scripture, but the reality is we still have very strong convictions and beliefs. We just don't necessarily always put them out there in the same way. Maybe we're not as far as they actually think we are. I mean, Kristen and I have a book coming out in the fall, and it is
shout out.
It is so hardcore Girl Defined, but in like the best way possible. And I'm so pumped about it. It's like
everything like like if you have read the first book, Girl Defined, and you're like, wow, that was a lot, this book is gonna blow your mind. No, because it's like, it really is. Nice. So we're not going anywhere.
How does it make you feel? Because I was watching a video today, haters, criticism videos. You guys get a ton of it.
Girl Defined, once again.
Girl Declined.
Girl Defined 2.
Girl Defined.
The new Girl Defined video.
Girl Defined posted a video.
No, I saw a video. I know I did. 33 million views reacting to you guys.
Yeah.
I'm just like, well, first off, what do you think is so appealing about people watching videos on you? Like, why is there so much interest around you guys?
I mean, honestly, I have been trying to figure that out. I don't know if it's...
Okay, so I want to unpack the first bit where she was talking with Morgan. I think it's interesting, or maybe it was here with Paul, where he was like, yeah, what do you think of people saying things like, oh, you're awakening, or you're making progress, or you're moving away from like your more traditional kind of strict roots? And it's funny to me that she says, I don't see that as a compliment. When, again, earlier in the documentary, she was like, series video, she was like, oh, I want to grow, and we are growing, and we talk about how we grow, and we talk about how we've learned. And then yet here she's saying, no, I don't think it's a compliment when people say I'm making progress, and when people say I'm moving, away from my more traditional roots. So it's like, which is it, girl? I feel like she contradicts herself a lot. It's like, are you open-minded and you're happy that you're being pushed and challenged and growing like you are with Dave and like you claim to be with Kristen? Or are you unhappy when people notice your progress because you think that they're winning, right? You think your haters are winning and trying to win you over to their side, where, again, all of those people that they just flashed up, all of those different reaction channels, I have watched like all of those videos, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you've watched them too, but I cannot think of a single big content creator who comments on them a lot. I cannot think of a single one of them who has said that they want Bethany to leave the church, that they want her to fall away from her religion, that they don't want her to believe in God anymore. Again, I don't think anyone wants that, because most people respect other people's faith, even if they don't agree with it, right? They respect that, like, hey, your faith is important to you, so you do you, right? I don't think anyone is calling for that. Again, I think most people are calling for you to just dial back your strict, rigid view of Christianity that you are trying to impose upon other people, right? Stop making Christianity look unappealing to people. Stop making Christianity look inaccessible to people, like it's this exclusive club where you have to do all of these things the right way in order to have the love and acceptance of God. That's the flavor of Christianity that people get when they view Girl Defined's kind of content. And that's what people are pushing back against, both non-Christians and Christians, who are like, hey, we don't ascribe to that version of Christianity. We don't believe in the same views as Girl Defined. They're making Christianity look a lot more rigid and a lot more intense and a lot more strict and all of that than it really is. It's about love and acceptance and freedom and openness and compassion in my mind. So that's why I'm making this video, again, to kind of push back and show a different version of Christianity.
It's like the dumb blonde stereotype, or if it's because like we're sisters. Like I've wondered that, like, why is there just like this explosion of people that love to make cringe videos about us? What do you think?
Oh, what do I think? You guys were some of the first ones, and you guys were okay. You all are very bubbly. You're very bubbly,
energetic.
Like I already said from jumping in the podcast with you guys. You turn it on, and it's like, well, like high energy. I wonder if some people would say like they're making their lives look so perfect and bubbly, and it comes across fake.
People have said that, which is, it's who we are online and like on social media and stuff. Like it really is like a very accurate representation of like our personalities and stuff. Like people have caught that. Like I'm probably more bubbly and more energetic and loud than Kristen. And people have caught those things about her personality. Like I'm more spontaneous. She's more well thought out, So it's like those things, those are true about us, you know? So like the high energy, the fast talking, like that's always been, but people also have a lot of other misconceptions. Like people think our family's like super wealthy, or that we were just handed everything. And so we're extremely spoiled, like these privileged kids. And we've talked so much about like, our parents literally moved to Texas with like $300, and they're like really old beat up car, started a business from scratch that provided for all 8 of us kids. Like we grew up in an extremely small house, always drove old cars. Like I don't know why people think we're just like these super stuck up, like fake plastic people. It's like, where'd you get that idea? Like
That's
we're not
so interesting because like people have said that about us, and so I wonder if just like people just assume that like influencers or social media people are just always like come from rich families and lots of money. And
no, we're not from Utah. We don't have that rich Mormon gene. I'm sorry.
Oh, Dave's laughing. Get him.
It's because all the Mormons are like all wealthy. All the Mormon influencers. LDS.
Okay, so intimate wife.
Okay, so again, just wanting to unpack that little clip there. So much to say. I'm trying to think back. So it was interesting to me that Bethany couldn't answer the question of like, I don't know why people don't like us. What do you think, Paul? Why do you think people don't like us? Because we just don't know. And to me, I think that's the very definition of living in an echo chamber where you don't even know what your audience truly thinks about you, right? You are not taking the time to read the comments because I guarantee you the comments on their Instagram and their YouTube channel are not always positive, right? And so the fact that you don't even know why people don't like you means you don't read the comments on your videos, you don't read the comments on your post, you don't watch these other content creators and their reaction videos to see what they are saying about you. So it's like, you don't even know. And I'm not saying they need to sit down and watch like every single thing that, a creator has made about them. But if someone were to make a video calling me out, I would at least want to sit down and watch it and see what they have to say. And if I can see some points where I'm like, okay, yeah, like they were actually right about that. And I do need to apologize for that, or that was an awkward moment, or that was a mistake that I made. I would take that in stride and I would maybe reflect on that and try to learn and try to grow. But the fact that, it's like they just have no idea why people don't like them just shows me it's like you haven't really engaged with people outside of your circle. You don't really want to talk with people outside of your circle and get that true, honest feedback from others. So that's what it showed me when she said, we don't know why people don't like us. And, the funny thing is too, when she's like, oh, people assume that we come from money and that we're super wealthy. And I don't know why. Bethany has bragged many, many times that she makes 6 figures as a stay-at-home mom. She runs a lot of like her own businesses, right? Trying to sell courses and ebooks and journals and planners. And they even plugged a book that they're releasing in the fall. So while they may not have come from money, they have money now. And Bethany very clearly flaunts that. And she does that whole, like, if you want to learn how to make money through social media, like DM me, like that kind of, MLM, Hunbot kind of mentality, if you will. So it's like, that's why people think you come from money is because, or you have a lot of money is because you flaunt the fact that you make 6 figures from social media. So, that's on you, I would say. So anyway, I'm curious now to see what Bethany says about Intimate Wife, which I hinted at earlier, the account that she runs by herself, which has all of her like sex goddess kind of content.
Intimate Wife.
The Intimate Wife Instagram. Well, okay, first of all, you started on your own Instagram page.
Yeah.
Making content all about sex. I'm saying it quietly because there are children around.
Get away from the children.
And you ended up like basically like being thrown in Instagram prison, first of all.
Yeah.
So that's insane and weird. But you also, I feel like, probably receive a decent amount of pushback from Christians being like, you're being way too edgy, you're being way too open about sex, and you're taking away from the gospel. Like you're taking away from what you could be discipling young women on. How do you go about that and like people telling you how to run your platform?
People have a lot of expectations for what like I should say, for what Girl Defined should say. I would say like the majority of the response has been largely positive, but there's probably like 20% of people who are Christians who are very passionate that I shouldn't be talking about sex and that this should be something that's specifically just between like a husband and wife and the Bible, and that it's extremely inappropriate for me to be talking about it. And like I'm super careful not to share like intimate details, like and then this and this touch, but like a lot of these Christians act like I'm literally like writing an erotic novel. That's definitely not the heart or the goal to be like super graphic, but I guess what I do post, a lot of people would consider to be extremely graphic and erotic. So we just have different definitions of what that would be.
That's true. And I feel like a lot of Christians feel that way because they did not grow up talking about sex. And that's, one of the reasons you're doing it is for those people who want to learn, who have that desire to have a healthy sex life.
People were so mad at me for talking about how I saved my first kiss for marriage. Like that's been people just like, you're so, damaging and like all this stuff for telling, even sharing that part of your story, like how you shouldn't. And I'm like, that's just my story. I'm not saying other people have to do that. So then when I got married and then as I've gone, on in marriage and started talking about more about like sex and marriage and stuff, now people are like it's like you can't don't feel like you can win. You're like, okay, you're mad at me because I talked about saving my first kiss for marriage. Like that was too extreme. And now I actually talk about sex in marriage and that's too extreme. It's just like, what, And my question is though, like, okay, if other Christian women aren't talking about sex, who do you want talking about it? Do you just want it to be Google? Like, do you just like realistically? And the part that's hard for me is, I see these hundreds and hundreds of women who go through the course that I created, the sex course where I interviewed all these experts. And I'm like, they're literally paying money to go through this. There's a need, like they need this and they want this. So you might be over there like complaining, like, how dare you? But there are so many women who have had years of struggle. And it's like, where do you want them to go? They've never felt like they've had anywhere to go. Like, shouldn't we be celebrating that there are more Christian women talking about this rather than trying to like silence them? And I have people who tell me like, when will you listen to the voices? You have people correcting you and giving you like wisdom to stop and to like shut this down and to not talk about sex anymore. And they basically act like because them and several others, 20% of them online are telling me to shut down, that I'm basically just like this super rebellious. I don't care about wisdom because I'm not shutting down because they want me to. So it's just like, it's just crazy. I don't understand. Like, I don't know what they want for Christian women, and I like, what about?
So I actually made a whole video kind of breaking down Bethany's pivot from, pushing out her like purity culture related content with Girl Defined that again is about like dressing modestly and saving your first kiss for marriage and abstaining from sex until marriage and stuff like that, to her, just very like hypersexual kind of content. And when I say hypersexual, I'm not exaggerating. Go check out her account for yourself and you'll see what I mean. My problem with her kind of pivot was that, again, she is not an expert in sex at all. Because again, she admitted that she did not know how it worked until she was 20. And then she didn't get married until she was 30. So that means for like a whole decade after she learned what sex was, she did not really learn about her sexuality at all. And then she also admitted in another video that she and Dave had a rough first few years of their marriage when it came to sex and sexual compatibility and stuff like that. And, when she said earlier, like, oh, I don't share like too much information, basically the things that she would share kind of implied that like Dave wasn't that good of a lover and he couldn't get her to climax. And so he opened up about how that made him feel when he would read the comments of people like judging him and criticizing his performance as a man and criticizing his ability to satisfy his wife and be a good lover and all of that. So she definitely has shared too much information when it comes to their sex life and how unsatisfying it was in the beginning. And so factoring all of that in, the fact that she didn't learn about sex until she was 20, the fact that she didn't even have sex until she was 30, and then she had an unsatisfying first few years in her sex life with Dave, she's really only had a healthy sex life for like the last year or two, we could argue. So that's the problem I have with her, is that she tries to act like she's the expert, and she'll say she's not the expert, and she'll have the experts come on her podcast and episodes and talk with her. But she's mostly making the content by herself. She's not partnering with these experts all the time. She'll post tips by herself. She'll post resources by herself. She'll do all of these things. She created that course pretty much by herself. And so that's the problem I have with it, is why would anyone who, is having a hard time with sex, why would you want to go to someone else who had a hard time with sex and who isn't an expert? That's the issue that I have with her kind of pushing out her like sex courses and things like that. It's like, Why would you want to learn from someone that had such a warped view of sex and has only really had a healthy sex life within the last year or two? I mean, I will say, like, as a Christian woman, I am glad that she's not afraid to talk about sex and that she does come at it from the position of, like, women need to own their sexuality and women need to communicate what they want in the bedroom. Like, I'm all for that, and I agree with that, and I'm glad that she is doing that. But I think, again, she can just point to more resources rather than acting like she has all the answers, which she does about like 80% of the time on her account. Like I said, here and there she'll rope in the random expert, but I wish that she would just kind of like point to them more instead of acting like she's the expert and ultimately just trying to make money by selling these courses and these ebooks and stuff like that. So that's my beef with that.
Are they talking about like what?
Right.
It's just so mind-blowing to me.
Has there ever been a reel or post that you've made and after posting it and getting comments on it, you're like, okay, I went too far on that one?
I post
Shameless.
things.
Shameless.
I post things and I don't think that they're a big deal in the moment.
Yeah.
And then later it turns into a big deal. So
No.
I posted a reel.
Yes.
I'll say it and everyone's gonna be like screaming. It was about Thanksgiving.
I knew you were gonna say that one.
We talked about that one.
I literally saw it pop up on my phone and I said, Morgan, look at this.
Okay, I did not think about it. All I said is I asked Dave what his favorite dish was for Thanksgiving, and he said me. And I did not think it was a big deal. It was just like written on the text. I wasn't doing anything. So I'm like, I wasn't graphic. I just thought this was like a funny, kind of spicy married wife joke.
You knew it.
I am genuine. Like,
I believe her that she didn't.
I promise 100%. I didn't, when I posted it, I was not thinking like this one will be a controversial, like this one is gonna. That's what happens. Like people, the ones I do that sometimes. Yes, I do that. But like with that specific post, I was not doing that. Like I was not doing that. But there have been posts where I do know I'm being like, poking, spicy. Whatever. When I posted it, it wasn't a big deal. And then later I was like, wow.
Okay,
like, people really didn't like
it's
that.
Still
Is
up.
it still up?
Yeah.
Can we share it right then, just so people can?
Oh, we'll plop it in.
I mean, I feel like we got to, and then people can take it how they want.
I really didn't though. That's the genuine. I get people's perspective on it, but like I still think that's okay.
Yeah.
Like I'm not ashamed of it, and I think that we need some humor and some fun in the conversation too, or else it's like, you know, how about fashion on marriage? You know, it's like.
So yeah, I mean, I remember when Paul showed me, and I was like,
you were shocked.
Well, my mind
I was like, too much visual.
Because
stop the brain.
Because you had made a post in the past. And I appreciate a lot of your posts because I'm like I appreciate that she's willing.
He does.
I do. I appreciate that she's willing to destigmatize something for the Christian community that some of them have a really hard time with.
No, we're in full support. But some posts are like,
I did not realize how controversial aspects of intimacy could be. Like genuinely, it's not until I started talking about like intimacy and you know, different things within intimacy that I realized like, wow, this is very divisive amongst Christians. In my mind, it's like, it's husband and wife. Like, enjoy what you want. Like, why are we trying to, like, I do not get it. Like, if it's between the husband and wife and they're both on board, you're not bringing other people in, like, all of those basics, like, what is the deal?
So much to say. So, yeah, you know, you saw the reel that they plopped in that she made, the one that she claimed she had no idea would be that controversial, which I'm like, girl, I don't believe her. I think she knew what she was doing. How can you, I think even, you know, people who aren't Christian, right, who are more secular and, you know, more edgy and all of that, I think even they think that's a little like risque and they know what they're doing, right? So the fact that she's like, I had no idea that this would blow up or be that controversial. I'm like, girl, you knew what you were doing. And I think, again, the reason why she received so much like pushback from more conservative Christians is because here she has been with Girl Defined talking about like saving yourself for marriage, not thinking lustful thoughts, you know, saving your first kiss for marriage, like all of these things, dress modestly, don't cause people to stumble, don't cause people to lust, don't read erotic books like 50 Shades of Grey or Colleen Hoover, you know, all of these like really rigid things. And then here she made this pivot to like, oh, I'm going to joke about how like I'm my husband's favorite dish, you know, and like Morgan said, it's like that's putting visuals in people's heads. And so I think that's why so many people got like a whiplash and they're like, wait, what? This is the girl that's telling us to wear like a long sleeve button up shirt under like a potentially like V-cut dress that's not that low cut. This is the same girl that's telling us, you know, you need to not think lustful thoughts and you need to, you know, like throw Colleen Hoover books in the trash and you need to throw 50 Shades of Grey in the trash. And so I think that like whiplash was really jarring for people. Even Paul and Morgan, who are their friends, are like, where did this come from? You know, so I think that's why. And I wish Paul had finished what he was going to say when he was like, well, in the past, you made a post about whatever. So I'm thinking she probably made posts in the past about like not joking around like that, right? Not like having like lewd speech come out of your mouth. That's like a Bible verse that I'm sure she has used before. And so I would be curious to see what post Paul was referring to that made him then shocked that she would make a post like this. So I was going to say this last bit here when she's talking about, you know, like, oh, I thought that my content would be fine. I didn't think it was too edgy because I'm talking about what happens between a man and a wife, what happens between two people who love each other within the covenant of marriage. So why is it a big deal? Why are people so worried about this? Why are people so uptight about what goes on between a, you know, a married couple in the bedroom? And, you know, the same argument could go for, you know, why, Bethany, are you so hung up about who loves who? Why are you so hung up about who marries who? Why are you so hung up about what people want to be called? Why are you so hung up about people's genitals and what they may or may not have and what they may or may not want to change? Why are you so hung up about what people do within the privacy of their own home, within the privacy of their own relationships? Just some food for thought there. I'll leave it at that because I don't want to get canceled too.
It's just shocking to me. And there are people I know, like we have had it out, like in the DMs, and they are just like, they like basically,
Christians?
I am. Oh yeah, like people I know from my past who have basically like come to my DMs to tell me, even things like using lube, like that's like you should not. Anything besides like the basic act is like wrong, you know. And it's just like, where are we getting these ideas from?
It's true.
It's really crazy.
And then you just feel sad for them.
But all of those people claim like we've been married for this many years, and from day one it's been the best. And you're just like, well, I don't believe it.
That's the fascinating thing about the sex advice content is we're all walking a line with it, and everyone thinks this is where the line should stop. And it's like you're putting yourself out there with the hope of helping Christian marriage sex lives, and there's not a lot of content out there. So you're taking risks, and I would just hope that the audience could give you some grace of like, I support you. Oh, you went maybe a little further than I would have gone, but as a whole, well done.
I don't really feel like there's that balance, you know?
Is that too much to ask?
That's the whole point of this project is like waking people up to see like you don't have to agree with how Bethany Beal does it. But you can still support the fact that she is pouring into the kingdom just in a different way than you would or that you feel called to.
And I'm sure you could literally spend an hour easily just going over testimonies of there was this Christian couple and they were suffering in their sex life, and you because it's such a huge part of marriage.
Can I pray for us?
Oh, dude, love to.
Oh, are you surprised or still?
Oh, dude, it blesses my heart. It warms my heart.
God, thank you for our friends, and thank you for this food, and thank you for Bethany making it. Pray you bless it, bless our time. In Jesus' name.
If there was like one YouTube channel that you'd say is your favorite, who would it be?
Mostly I listen to Megan Kelly, and that's about it.
Oh, Megan Kelly.
I like her.
Don't you dare say anything bad about Megan Kelly. Don't you dare.
I love Megan.
Okay, side note, again, that confirms my whole like echo chamber thing. Like Paul asked her, what's your favorite, you know, YouTube channel? And of course she's like, oh, Megan Kelly, which is a Fox, you know, newscaster. So kind of proves my point that she lives in an echo chamber and doesn't consume content from many other people, it seems like. Definitely not people that are different from her.
I think she's cool.
That's toe cramp. Toe cramp. Toe cramp. Oh no.
Help her.
needs some of
Help
that.
her.
I need more water or
She
something.
should
Is
come
this
to-
common?
She should have come to the clinic tonight. Dude, if you had been in the clinic, in that ice bath in the heat. Okay, who is more emotional out of you two? Who is more likely to cry?
Bethany for sure.
But you're a crying man.
I am a very crying man, but relatively speaking, she'll cry more.
Do you guys like get people being like, you guys are too happy and joyful?
That's the weird thing though. It's like
Miserable.
Kristen and I have both been through like hardships, you know? Like I mean
What, you didn't find a parking space up front?
Oh man.
That's what people think about. You know,
yeah. No, but like people like just because we don't like we
Talk a lot about.
yeah, and like we've both really have, even though it's really hard, we both are like very passionate about like trusting in the Lord during hard times. And so like Kristen, like having to go through 12 years of infertility and miscarriages and all that, like that's really hard. Like that like wrecks a lot of people, you know? Or like me in between Davey and Audrey, like 3 miscarriages, and the one that happened like where I was traveling to Ukraine was so traumatic and like so awful, like that sort of stuff. And I'm not complaining about getting married at 30, but like for a lot of single women, like they'll talk about those years before they got married, like how awful and horrible they are and stuff like that. And I think because even though those things were hard for us, we like really find peace and like rest and trust in the Lord. And so it's not like faith altering or like we just are going crazy. Like getting angry at God and stuff has just never made sense to me. Like it's, you know, going like the 3rd time I went through the miscarriage, it's not like, God, why are you doing this? Why are you even like playing this trick, you know? Or like, why would you let me get pregnant only to take it away? It's like, I know he's good. And like, I know we live in a fallen world. And so I just understand like, he is my place of comfort.
Sometimes I struggle with the tragedy and you're
For sure.
describing your tragedy. And I just imagine sometimes like horrible situations.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's hard for me to see, and it sounds cliche, but see God in them. Like,
yeah.
Like God, if you're really involved in our lives, how could that happen? You're able to not really like go down that.
I don't know why. I mean, so when there's 8 kids in our family, technically 9. So the last one of the lineup, he was born with he had a chromosomal disease, and he only lived for 8 hours. And we were like, I was like 16 or whatever. So it's like, I clearly remember we were all in the hospital room there for, you know, his death, all of that. And it was extremely difficult and so hard. And, you know, I was just a sister in that situation. I cannot imagine being the mom, you know, but seeing my parents, how they dealt with that and how they handled that was extremely inspiring. And I still think about that, of just how they didn't get mad at God. They weren't like, we really drew together as a family through that whole experience, and our community really surrounded us. And that's something that even to this day, like really has impacted me in a positive way, because like now as a mom too, I'm like, that is so hard to go through something like that, to literally lose your baby, you know, after carrying it for 9 months, only being able to be like literally, you know, the funeral, everything. It was so dramatic and traumatic, but they never like walked away from God. They never they taught us through that experience how to lean into God and how to trust him.
I kind of asked this because it's definitely happened.
So yeah, a lot to say about that too. Of course, you know, my heart really goes out to both Kristen and Bethany for experiencing miscarriages. You know, I can only imagine how traumatic that would be as a woman. So, you know, even though I may not like them personally and I may not agree with them, you know, human to human, woman to woman, Christian to Christian, I am, you know, deeply sorry that happened to them. And, you know, not to sound Christian-y, but I will be praying that God will heal their hearts from that pain and from that trauma. But in that similar vein, you know, when Bethany says like, yeah, but I wasn't mad at God, and I've never really felt like being mad at God was the way to go when I'm faced with life's challenges. You know, on the one hand, like I commend her for that, because that does show a lot of strength and a lot of resolve and resilience. But on the other hand, I think it's okay to be mad at God. I think God can handle it, you know. the book of Psalms is one of my favorite books of the Bible, and I love it because many of the Psalms written by David are him pouring his heart out to God and telling God how he feels about things and how hard things are for him. You know, there are verses where David is crying out to God and he's like, God, how long will you forget me? Will you forget me forever? You know, I really resonated with that, especially like Bethany, when I was really struggling with being single and approaching 30 and watching people getting married around me and feeling like I was running out of prospects and running out of time. And, you know, thankfully none of that was true. I ended up becoming happily married a year later. But I really resonated with those Psalms where David was crying out to God about feeling forgotten, feeling overlooked, feeling depressed, feeling overwhelmed. You know, I'm a Christian that struggles with anxiety and depression. And so I really resonated with David's Psalms that talk about that, where he's crying out to God and ask God, why is this happening to me? I think that's a fair question to ask. And I think if you ask those things of God, God will meet you in that place and he will give you the strength and resolve to move forward through life's challenges. But I think it's okay sometimes to just kind of sit in the valley for a little bit and be depressed and be sad and be angry and cry out to God and then dust yourself off and get back up and continue on, you know. But I think Bethany kind of ascribes to what people call toxic positivity. And you find this a lot in Christian communities, especially more hardcore Christian communities like the one she grew up in, which is that, you know, any kind of negative feeling needs to be shoved aside because God is good all the time, all the time. God is good. And who are you to question God's ways? Who are you to question God at all? And so, you know, there's a famous passage from the book Anne of Green Gables where Anne is telling her like nanny or, you know, governess or whatever at the time that she's in the depths of despair, right? She's sad about something, I can't remember what, and she says, I'm in the depths of despair. And her like nanny, governess, whatever, basically tells her to despair is to turn your back on God. And, you know, a little bit of transparency here. I was told that by my family growing up. My family did not recognize mental health issues or know how to deal with them. So when I was, you know, wallowing, as my mom would call it, in depression, she would tell me things like that to despair is to turn your back on God. And I know other people who grew up in kind of more fundamentalist homes heard the exact same thing. A friend of mine and I were actually relating about the fact that our parents have both used that same exact phrase, to despair is to turn your back on God, against us when we opened up about struggling with depression. So I would wager that Bethany grew up in a similar environment and would hear similar things from her parents whenever she talked about being sad or overwhelmed or whatever as a kid or a young woman. So I think she kind of ascribes to that version of Christianity where it's toxic positivity, it's sunshine and rainbows all the time because God is good no matter what. And of course, while I believe that God is good no matter what, I think it's also okay to say, God, this really sucks. I know that you are good and that you work all things together for my good. But right now, in this moment, this trial that I'm going through, this situation that I'm facing is hard. And I feel overwhelmed and I feel angry and I even feel angry at you. But that doesn't mean I still don't love you. That doesn't mean I still don't trust you. That doesn't mean I don't think that you're good, right? Two things can be true at once. We can be angry at God, but we can still believe that God is good.
Happen with Morgan and I, and does happen with us. People online like to decide which one they're going to agree with more than villainize the other person. And I was kind of reading comments on a video and I saw, I hope Bethany's husband finds happiness.
Oh, I heard that one before.
That's been our story. I hope Morgan finds happiness.
Yes.
And when you hear it, freedom, when you hear that so many times, it can start to.
Oh yeah, sometimes I feel sometimes I feel a little sorry for myself. Yeah, 100%. It's not
expound on that if you don't.
It ain't king energy, but it's something.
It's not what?
It's not king energy.
Okay.
It's
King energy.
Already feeling sorry for myself, and then hearing one of those and be like, "You're damn right."
Wow.
I got a man.
Well, but that's a scary thought for me if I were to think like Morgan's over there thinking
it's possible for someone to feel bad for them, still feel sorry for themselves.
Have you felt that way when you get all these messages of? No, let's be real. Like of messages of you, Morgan. What is it? I hope Morgan finds happiness, and that's said in so many different ways.
I would say that I've.
Please say no. Please say. I'm being real. I hope these aren't sticking with you.
We're gonna have a check-in.
Like Morgan can do so much better. That type of stuff.
No. None of that stuff is. I've never been like. Oh,
And then we're getting back to you guys.
And none of that stuff about like you're
yeah.
being mentally or emotionally abused. Like I'm like, you guys are idiots. Like sorry, but idiots, total idiots. But I will say there have been times when like maybe someone has said something of like, I'm trying to think.
Oh no, where's she about to go with this?
What is it? Well, okay. Well, this is just something that like Christians and haters will say, like Paul cuts you off when you talk. Like, he's not like listening. Like he's not respecting your voice. But they like take it deeper and they're like, it's because he doesn't respect you. Blah, blah, blah. And I don't think that's the case, but I am like.
But then y'all talk about it? Like, are you like, why do you cut me off?
There are times when, like, after a video, I'll be like, hey, like, you cut me off a couple times. Like, can you chill out? And he's like, you're right. Like, I'm so sorry. I'll chill out. And he does. He does a good job of that, if I point it out.
It's just, like, the way people take it deeper and they're like,
yeah.
Yeah,
no, I've never sat around and been like, you're right. I am in a terrible marriage. He is the villain.
Are you finished?
So again, that kind of proves my point that these people live in an echo chamber. Again, maybe not Dave so much, but just the way that like Morgan was just so like dismissive when Paul was like, do you read like people's comments about us, Morgan? Like, I hope none of that sticks with you when people say things like, oh, you know, I hope you find happiness and I hope you leave Paul and blah, blah, blah. It's interesting how she's like, no, people are just idiots. They're all idiots for thinking I'm being mentally and emotionally abused and blah, blah, blah. And you know, that again, that dismissive nature just kind of shows me like, yeah, you're kind of content to just live in an echo chamber and not take in what other people are saying. Because for me, I feel like if I had a career on YouTube where my whole job is centered around, you know, showing myself online, right? And I'm constantly getting feedback from people, constantly getting criticism about the way I appear and the way I present myself and the way I present my life. You know, I get constant criticism about like, you're too, like, let's say, you know, I'm like Bethany and Paul, where people are like, you're too strict, you're too black and white, you don't have a lot of nuance, you don't have a lot of grace for other Christians, you make it very like us versus them, you make Christianity look unattractive, your marriage looks dysfunctional, you don't look happy in your marriage, y'all fight all the time, blah, blah, blah. You have to remember, like, as a YouTuber, you are in control of what the audience sees, right? What you choose to upload, what you choose to keep in, unless you're going live, right? You are in control of the way people perceive you. And if if you're getting constant negative feedback about the way people are perceiving you, that would cause me to check in with myself and be like, okay, well, what is not resonating with people? Because clearly people are seeing me a different way than I think I am. I don't think I'm black and white. I don't think I'm super strict. I don't think my marriage looks dysfunctional. So how can I change the way I present myself to my audience so that they can see the real me? So I would argue that if a bunch of people are giving you negative feedback and negative criticism, then you should reflect on that and be like, okay, what is going on? If people are commenting this video after video after video after video after video, after post after post after post after post, what is going on? Because clearly the way that I'm presenting myself to the audience is not the way that's clicking with people. It's not resonating with people. People aren't seeing me rightly. So what is going on? Do I need to change something about myself? Do I need to present myself in a different way? Do I need to dial it back a bit? Do I need to be more honest, more vulnerable? Do I really need to let people in? You know, I would start to reflect on those things if I was getting all of the comments that they're getting. And I will argue, to play devil's advocate, you know, of course, people make assumptions based on just a slice of your life, right? We all know social media isn't real life. We all know that it's just a highlight reel of people's lives for the most part. So I do think that, of course, sometimes people can take a snippet of your life that you put online and think that they know everything about you. So I totally get that. And I totally get how some comments from some people might be taking it way too far, right? Because I don't think any of these people need to leave each other. I don't think they need a divorce. I don't think they would ever. Do they have things to work on within their marriage? Sure. But, doesn't everyone, right? No marriage is perfect. No marriage is 100% happy all the time. So of course we all have things to work on. But, I do think that, yeah, of course people can take it too far and be too much into things. But again, I would say if the majority of your feedback that you're getting lately is negative and you're getting that time after time after time after time, that would cause me to reflect and see what is going on and why am I not clicking with my audience and why do they have a different opinion of me that I feel like isn't, the real me? How can I show people the real me? How can I connect with people better? How can I present myself in a way that people understand me and get the right impression of me? That's what I would reflect on if I was getting flooded with the kinds of comments that they're getting flooded with. But we're different people. Again, I'm okay hearing constructive criticism from other people. Clearly, they all are not, except for Dave.
Yes.
Hey, that's fair. Like it's real life. To me though, in all reality, like that is a little bit scary. It's a little bit scary because it's not our friends close to us or people from church. It literally can be like multitudes online, sending DMs, commenting, making videos. So it's just the thought of that in circulation.
The stuff online, I think the part that gets like the comments and all of the messages, like I'm the villain, And I think the only time it gets frustrating for me is if just being honest, is like when he's like, it starts interacting with them. And sometimes I feel like starts like, oh, like they're actually really nice people and all of this. And almost like it feels like it's now like them against me. And it's less of like, he's not upset or mad at me or anything. It's just more like, oh, we should be sympathetic, but at the end of the day, it's like in some of these cases, I feel like these people really do want they do want to see our relationship fall apart, even though they might be like, we hope you and Bethany stay together. They don't really hope that, and that's kind of become apparent with a lot of these people that it's not. And so I think that's frustrating because I really don't believe they have pure motives or pure intentions or really care about either of us. And so it's, to me, that's frustrating if there is. And this just be like being real. I want to feel like my man is like standing up for me and like he is like, forget them. They're like, why are they coming after my girl? And so
this points to, again, just an interesting aspect of, Christians where like Christians like Bethany and not even Christians, like there are people like this where they think that any kind of criticism, especially even constructive criticism, any type of feedback, especially if it's negative or maybe a little bit constructive or maybe a little bit critical, is someone just hating on you. And when she says, I don't believe these people have pure motives when they leave, comments calling me out, I would disagree with that. I would think that the reason why people are calling you out is because they care. They care how you present yourself. They care that you're not clicking with your audience. They care that you are not presenting Christianity in the right way, which is what I care about, which is why I make content reacting to them. I do it because I care. If I didn't care, I would leave them alone, right? I would leave them alone. I wouldn't bother commenting. I wouldn't bother interacting. And I sure as heck wouldn't sit down and film a 2-hour video reacting to them, right? If I didn't care. But because I am so zealous about the church and how Christianity appears to people nowadays, this is why I call people like Bethany out, because I want Christianity to be seen as loving and compassionate and accepting, because I believe that is what will draw people to Christianity. I don't think Bethany's version of Christianity is attractive or appealing. And I think Christians like her have kind of talked long enough, right? We've heard from y'all long enough. You've been on YouTube for like 10 years now, Paul and Morgan too. We've heard from y'all long enough. It's time for people who have a more balanced view of Christianity to come forward, in my opinion, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I absolutely disagree with her. And I think that people can 100% have pure motives when they call you out. You just don't like it. You just don't like being called out, which is why you want to label that person as a hater. And even if they say things like, I really hope y'all find happiness in your marriage, and I really hope y'all work it out, I believe that people really do mean that. I don't think they're being sarcastic. I don't think they're lying. I don't think they're being shady. I think Bethany interprets it that way because, again, she doesn't want anyone to challenge her worldview. She doesn't want anyone to kind of pop the bubble that she's living in. And it says a lot about Dave that he is willing to actually engage with these people and talk with them and have a conversation with them, whereas Bethany is not. And to me, it's kind of odd when like these content creators like Bethany and Paul and Morgan, how they'll just make these videos, but then they won't like interact with people in their comments section. To me, it's kind of like, I just want to talk at you. I just want to lecture you, but I'm not going to actually engage with you in the comments because I don't really care that much what you think. I don't really want to hear from you. I just want to talk at you and share my point of view. I very, very rarely see the Girl Defined girls interact with people in their comments, except to maybe like a comment that they appreciate. But I very, very rarely see them interact with people in a good or bad way. I don't see them react to haters, and I don't see them interact with their fans either. So yeah, to me, it's just very odd when these like YouTubers want to just kind of talk at people rather than talk with people. And, props to Dave for being willing to actually engage with people and hear a different point of view.
When you're like compassionate toward them, it's kind of like,
Yeah.
could you? Yeah, it makes me like I feel bad, like I choose to, but it's hard.
Yeah, so in order to deal with that, because I don't want to, one, compromise my own integrity by dropping the fact that I think that a lot of these people are not as evil as sometimes we talk about on the one hand, but I also do want to be a very strong, rock for Bethany and stand up for her as her husband and all that. So typically my solution has been just to not have those ongoing conversations.
It's hard
but
because
we do have different views about this.
I guess it's hard for me if I feel like, okay, you're building relationships, man, woman, I don't care, with people who hate me. I mean, it's like, I can imagine if I'm in your shoes, like it's gotta be nice to be the one with that they really like. Mm-hmm. And then if you're feeling frustrated at me for some reason, like, yeah, you are kind of right. It's like, I can imagine if I were in their shoes, whatever, it's gotta feel a little bit good to be the one that they like.
Yeah, I think they kind of see, from some of the videos I watched, I think they kind of see you as more progressive in your views and more open-minded, where they would they would look at Bethany and be like, Bethany looks at the Bible and she proclaims what she sees to her following, and it's pretty black and white to her. And Dave is over here kind of looking like the mediator, like he's kind of coming our way. He doesn't see things so black and white. He's a very nuanced man. I think Dave could come our way. They're kind of, I think, rooting for you when they feel like with Bethany, like, she's probably never going to, but maybe we could get Dave. So I can see how that would sting for Bethany in particular, like these people, maybe they're not all horrible, but they're not looking out for our marriage.
Yeah.
So the funny thing is when Bethany's like, yeah, like today, when she's like, it must be nice to be the one that like people like, I bet that feels good for you. And, I think Dave is the one that people like because he's actually willing to talk to people. Like I said, Bethany doesn't talk to people. She talks at people, but not with people. And I think that's why people like Dave, because he actually talks with people and he wants to understand people, even if they have a different point of view from him. And, when I sat down to make a reaction to their review of the Barbie movie, I was actually pleasantly surprised to find that I did agree with Dave more, and that he was more open-minded and willing to kind of have a more nuanced conversation rather than Bethany, who is black and white. I think people don't like that personality type all the time. And Bethany can change that by being willing to actually have a conversation with people who are different than her, who have a different point of view than her, and to not just shut them down. And this might be kind of a hot take, but I think kind of piggybacking off of what she said about, supporting your spouse and how she's disappointed when Dave is interacting with people who hate her. Well, again, Dave doesn't see it that way. He sees it more nuanced as like, hey, I don't think these people hate you. And he even said, I don't think they're as evil as y'all make them out to be. And so I think it's actually a loving thing for your spouse, again, to kind of have an open mind and take in how people perceive you and your marriage and be like, hey, it looks like we're not coming across the way that we want to people. What can we change about that? How can we learn and grow as a couple so that we seem more approachable and relatable and more nuanced and more fun and people actually want to engage with? I think that's a loving way that your spouse can help you grow, right? Both of y'all. I mean, of course, like I want my husband to support me, but I also want him to call me out when, I maybe interpret things a different way, kind of like Dave did here when Bethany is like, these people hate us. And Dave was like, I don't think they do. I would want my husband to call me out if I'm like, hey, I think this person hates me because they're calling me out all the time and they're doing this and that. I would hope that my husband would give me a different perspective and be like, hey, Nicole, I actually think they're trying to present a different point of view. I don't think they hate you. They're just trying to interject a different point of view. I think that's a loving and kind thing that your spouse can do to help you grow and be more open-minded.
Well,
I feel like they would like to see me. They would love to see you leave me and go off and do something, and they'd love for my life to just like they don't just dislike my message.
Yeah,
they don't like me.
That's largely. I think that's largely true.
Yeah. So it's not. It doesn't feel good for me to see you like, trying to like, I don't know about these relationships as they're proactively telling you like, we want you to have a happy marriage, but we would be, we understand if you need to leave.
Because that was what they were doing with Morgan. Yeah. They were saying suddenly they really liked Morgan. They were bashing us for 2 years.
Yes.
And then the video gets made about me of being emotionally abusive, and then suddenly they love Morgan and they're saying, Morgan, how much do you need for me to pay you to get out from him, like get away from him? And it's like, suddenly you're really supportive.
Money?
We could have maybe utilized that.
Like, send me all the money.
But suddenly they're really friendly with you.
Get out?
Because
No,
they
it's
have
still stuck. Send more.
right.
Just a little bit more. It's so true though. Yeah, like out of nowhere.
Yeah, and it was all so, for me, it was so clearly, I was just like, you don't give one hoot or holler about me.
I have
You love the drama.
I think they love the drama. I think that's a part of it here.
I want to kind of. There's so much that could be said about
this. Is a lot.
I can see, people who have made videos about us. Cody Cohn, he kind of started this all off with like Girl Define. His video has like 33 million views or whatever. I hope he has a wonderful life. I hope he gets married and has kids, and like I hope he makes lots of money, Like my kids will be very tall, your kids will be very short. But seriously, like I have no desire to like get on some channel and be like, turn Cody Cohn down.
And I totally believe you.
Agree. But so the point is that I feel like there are some people in life, whether they're a fan or a hater or whatever, they approach social media or people they see online, and the ones they disagree with, they like really wish ill on them, and they hope like. And then there are other people who don't do that, and so it's like my thing is like. The people who are actively on these hater channels or on these Reddits or, it's like they have that gene of like wanting to see people like go down, wanting to see them demonetized, proactively coming against like their sponsors and trying to get them shut down.
I think there's a lot of that energy there, but I don't necessarily think it's unique to that group. It is conceivable, I'm not saying that they all do, but it is conceivable that the haters are willing to tell you things about yourself that nobody else is willing to tell you, unless you have the type of people in your life that will call you out. And a lot of us.
Dang, Dave is dropping some truth there. But I want to back up just a little bit to what Bethany said about, people are actively rooting for our marriage to fail, and they would be so happy if you, Dave, would leave me and my life would just crumble. And again, I don't see a lot of people calling for that. I don't see a lot of these big content creators calling for that. I could see like a random people in their comments calling for that for sure. And you know what? To those people, you don't have to engage with them. You don't have to interact with them, right? Those people you can easily spot and be like, okay, they're just being a hater. They're just being a troll. They're just being a whatever. But someone who comes at you from like a rational point of view, no high emotion, no swearing, no crazy language or anything, but they're just trying to offer some constructive criticism and feedback, like I did with their whole like video about masturbation. And they were so threatened by it that they had to block my account and delete that comment from that reel. If you go and look at it now, you won't see it, but I can put up the screenshots to show you because I take screenshots of everything. But anyway, like that to me is like someone who is trying to give constructive feedback and you are actively shutting them out, right? You are treating them like a hater, you're treating them like a troll, even though I came at them with like no swearing, no cussing, no crazy language, no high emotion. I just talked in a reasonable way, trying to open a conversation with them about this topic, and I immediately get shut down. So again, I think they are so triggered by people, anyone coming against them, that they just immediately want to shut them down and write them off as a hater. And, to the people that are like interfering with their sponsors, like contacting them and being like, hey, don't work with Girl Defined because of blah, 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 blah. I think that's too far, right? Like we always talk about, like influencers always say, YouTubers always say, don't take it to real life, right? Don't start messing with these people in real life. Don't mess with their money. Don't mess with their sponsors. Don't mess with their property. Don't show up at their house. Don't mail them crazy things. Don't do any of that, right? Don't take it real life. Just keep it online. So that I agree is too far. But again, you can recognize those people and you can choose not to engage with them. I have weird people commenting on my videos and stuff already, and I'm a teeny tiny little channel. You know what I do? I don't engage with them. But the people that are trying to have a dialogue with me, that are trying to genuinely open up a conversation with me, I'll chat with them, even if I don't agree with them. So I think that's where you can use a logic and kind of determine like, okay, this person is just being a troll and a hater and a crazy person, but this person genuinely has some good feedback and they genuinely seem like they want to open up a conversation with me. So I'm going to engage with this person. And I think that is what, Dave has been doing, right? So the fact that Bethany is so against him talking to anyone just proves to me that she just wants to keep her bubble small and keep living in that echo chamber.
Surround ourselves with people who will not.
But I feel like we are wise and we make sure that we have people in our lives to call us out when it's necessary, even if it's one another calling each other out on YouTube.
But did anybody ever call you out for cutting her off before a hater?
Christians, followers.
Yeah, Christians would call you out. Well, there you go.
Several of our like solid followers will be like, "Oh, stop cutting Morgan off."
Well, and those moments are helpful. Like we have people who follow us who share. Yeah. And even like people who work for Girl Defined, like they will share, like our employees, like they'll share honest feedback or thoughts about how things come across. And that's super helpful. Like the people that want to see, like even if they disagree, they want to see you do well or to make it better or to make it wiser. Those, and you can tell in the way they're messaging you, you know?
So in general, you shouldn't take advice from people who don't wish you well.
Right.
However, if you have integrity, you should be able to. You don't necessarily have to pay attention to haters, but you should be able to look past the fact that they're haters if they do happen to say something.
Of course, yes, I agree.
Yeah. If they say something that's true,
well, I would agree with you, Dave, that even though we have people that would speak into our lives, like we can have blind spots, and sometimes because of the communities that we're around and the people that support us, the blind spots can linger for a while, and sometimes it might take someone who's very far removed from that community to challenge us. Could that be someone off of Reddit or a criticism hate video? Potentially, but in the same vein, man, I really don't want to be spending much time.
No.
Paying attention to that.
I don't think it's worth. I think that I wish that y'all would more befriend people rather than choosing to view them as the kind of the bad ones or whatever. I do think
more truth from Dave. I tell you, I like him more and more every time I, watch stuff from him. I wish he would be on Girl Defined more and maybe interject some reason into their dialogue. But I do appreciate too, like Paul's self-awareness, where he was like, even though we have people in our lives who can call us out and who can point things out, we might have some blind spots because we're all a part of the same community. And I think that is a great level of self-awareness, because again, if you're surrounded by people who think like you, vote like you, believe like you, have the similar worldview as you, then of course you all may have like a common blind spot, if that makes sense, because you're all kind of a part of the same community and you all view things the same way. So of course you might have some of the same blind spots. So I think that's where it's helpful that other people outside of your community who necessarily don't have the same blind spots because they don't have the same perspective and same worldview can call things out. So I appreciate his level of self-awareness to recognize that there are some benefits to having people outside of your community call you out. And I can't believe I'm even saying that, because to me, it just seems like such a logical thing of like, yeah, of course it's beneficial to have people outside of your community call you out. But for these people, that seems like a novel concept, except for Dave again. And again, of course, like I agree with what Paul is saying of like, don't dedicate hours of your time to watching hate videos or, read negative posts about you, because that's just going to damage your self-esteem. And again, like these people are strangers commenting on a slice of your life, right? They don't know everything. So yeah, like take what people say with a grain of salt for sure. And don't invest a lot of time in watching hate channels about you. But I think, again, if you're getting consistent feedback from people over and over and over and over again on all of your content, like they are, all of them, that would cause me to step back and reflect. And I don't believe Bethany when she says that people in their inner circle kind of tell them, hey, like, this is how y'all are coming across, because like I pointed out, their views are kind of tanking, especially for how many followers they have on YouTube. Again, they have 160,000 followers, and their views, from what I've seen, have barely cracked double digits lately. They're all like 3,000 views, 4,000 views, 7,000 views. I have yet to see any that have cracked 10,000 or more. So that's a low level of engagement for how many followers they have. So I don't believe that people in their inner circle are giving them feedback about how they perceive, because if I were in their inner circle, I would point that out to them and be like, hey, your views are tanking. Your views have barely cracked double digits in like months, and that's not good engagement for YouTube. And even on Instagram, like they get very, very few comments. They'll maybe get like 10 or 20 comments, and they have 70,000 followers on Instagram. So whoever is in their inner circle, I don't think is giving them honest feedback about how they appear to others. Because if I were in their inner circle, if I were on their marketing team, PR team, whatever, which I don't believe they have, I think it's just like Bethany or Kristen, whoever. If I were on their PR and marketing team, I would definitely point out to them, hey, y'all, you're not reaching your audience in the way that you think you are, because your views are actually dropping, even though you have a high number of subscribers, and that doesn't look good. That's not what the algorithm wants. So yeah, I don't believe her when she says that people are giving them honest feedback about how they appear to others. Otherwise, they would be doing better, I think, because more people would find them approachable and relatable and want to watch their content, right? That's how it works.
I think that there is a road to that. But I think that you have decided to sort of play that us versus them game. I've started down the path of like befriending and like understand, and I'm like, okay, these people aren't just sitting there like with some sort of scary, they're just people. And
are you directing this at their channel and our channel?
I'm directing it at,
which is fine.
I'm directing it at all y'all to the degree that you want to just kind of write off whole groups of the internet. And I get that it's personal. I get that you've received more hate than I personally have.
I think too, for like literal mental health, like to try and bridge the gap between the Redditors who
Yeah.
literally send me death threats and tell me they are praying that my baby dies in my womb. Like, I just don't have time
That's
to
evil.
try
Yeah,
to
that's
bridge
very
that gap.
wicked.
But
no, that's wicked. But that is not. That's not everything.
It's not indicative.
Yeah.
It's not indicative of every Redditor.
So, yeah, I think the Reddit subthreads are, from my limited interaction or understanding, is full of people who are reacting against all kinds of stuff that both has happened to them and that they have created in their own lives. And the reason why I'm like this is because I am like that in plenty of ways. I'm not willing to just write off whole groups of people because they say unkind things.
So I agree. I'm not writing them off, but
yeah, so what Morgan was sharing about people sending her death threats and saying that they hope her baby dies and they pray for her baby to die, don't do that. That is awful and that is evil and that is wrong. I don't care what you think about these people. I don't care how crazy and out there you think they are. I don't care how much you dislike them. That is not okay. So I want to make that loud and clear that I do not support any kind of hate or harassment towards any of these people. It is unwarranted, no matter how much you agree with them or how out there you may think they are. So yeah, I just want to make that loud and clear that that is awful and I do not condone that or agree with that. But I do see what Dave is getting at and what I mentioned before, that of course he's saying then don't give those people a time of day, right? There's a big difference between people sending you death threats and people saying, hey, Morgan, it looks like some things in your marriage are a little bit dysfunctional. This is what we, the viewers, see. You know, there's a big difference from that. And I get when you are flooded with negative comments, of course, you don't want to take the time to sort out and look at, you know, every single little one. Obviously, no one has time for that. But again, I think if you're just even scrolling through your comments and you see that most of them are people trying to give you feedback about things, that would cause me to reflect. And I know I keep saying that, but it just seems like it's such a novel concept for Paul and Morgan and Bethany that they can't wrap their minds around the fact that, like, hey, people giving you feedback is not people hating on you, and you need to actually engage with your viewers and not just talk at them and not just lecture them and not talk only to the people in your audience that you agree with, but you need to have conversations with everyone. Again, not the people that are sending you crazy death threats, but normal people. And again, I think that's why people like Dave, right? When Dave even self-identified, like, yeah, I get that the three of you are getting it worse than me. Like the three of y'all are getting way more hate than I am. I think one is because Dave isn't really on social media to the degree that Bethany, Paul, and Morgan are. And two, the few times that Dave is on social media, he comes across as he is now, right? More balanced, more neutral, more nuanced. And so I think that's why people like him, because they see him as more approachable and relatable and open-minded and warm and willing to engage with people than the other three are. So I'd like that he's kind of pointing that out, especially when he says, you know, y'all need to stop making it like us versus them and actually befriend people that are different from you. I think that was a wise and great point.
I don't think the like online space is the place to do that. When I meet people, which I've met plenty of them in real life, they'll come and say hi or whatever. I like in person, absolutely. I would love to talk to you. I would love to build a relationship with you, but it's just too hard. That's why I think you're right about like people, when you're online, people, the lovers and the haters, they don't really know you that well. And that's why I think the biggest impact often comes from our real life relationships. Yeah. And that's why I'm constantly through Girl Define encouraging people to have real life relationships, get involved in church, all of that. But if I were to meet any Redditors in real life and they wanted to actually have a genuine conversation, like I am absolutely there for that. Like I hope to be able to have conversations with people who've made videos about us. Like I hope to be able to sit down and do stuff like
Somebody
that.
has to go first. Somebody has to be the first one to start a process like that.
I agree with you, Bethany, in that in-person, face-to-face conversations with those people who actually want to try and understand where we're coming from. Like we've had conversations with haters who I've sat down with people face-to-face and they've like been genuine of, I do want to know where you're coming from. I don't agree with it. And I've maybe commented some nasty things or whatever. just like really like pushing back or whatever. But like I do genuinely want to know where you stand, and those conversations I think are very good and healthy.
For sure.
And we walk away still completely disagreeing, but like being like, you're human, I'm human.
Yeah.
Does your
Respect.
right. Does your concept of
So I think it's interesting that Bethany is like, I would welcome people's feedback if they met with me in person, one-on-one, face-to-face. I don't think the online space is the place for me to receive constructive criticism or build a relationship with these people. Then I'm like, then what are you doing on social media? What are you doing here? This just proves my point that she just wants to talk at people and not with people. Because why are you on social media then if you don't want to hear what people have to say about you? If you don't want people to comment and make observations about your life, why are you posting about it then? Why are you not a private citizen then? Why are you a public figure on the internet when you don't want to engage with people and you don't want to hear what people have to say about you and you don't want to build a relationship with your online followers? To me, that is so odd and so anti the point of being on social media. I created my channel because I genuinely want to have conversations with Christians who want to talk about deeper things like this. Christians like Dave, right, that are more nuanced and want to have like true, genuine, open-minded conversations. I can't imagine starting my YouTube channel telling people I want to have conversations with them and then just not doing it, right? Like so many of them say, like, yeah, we want to have conversations with y'all. We want to open up the floor for y'all. We want to hear what you think. No, they don't really. And that just proves my point.
them? You kind of just answered it, but your concept of them sounds like changes. In other words, they're no longer just a, butthole 335.
You say butthole?
No.
They're like, they're now something more than that.
These people are not just, and again, I don't mean every single one, but a good chunk of them are not just, criticizers. They've inflicted very heavy, amounts of pain.
I agree with
on their, I just know for a fact, on them, on us.
Like ruining opportunities, trying to actually make it impossible for me to even be in that space or have any success in that space.
All of that is absolutely ridiculous, and people that do that are idiots for doing that when they do that.
See, it feels good to hear you say
that. That feels nice.
Do you like that?
That does feel nice, seriously.
Yes, I'm very sorry that you have gone through that you have faced that. That's really rough.
They sent us a chocolate penis.
What?
Yes, one time in our P.O. box, someone sent us a giant chocolate penis.
It could have been so much worse. That's actually not that bad.
We did not eat it.
We melted it down to chocolate fondue. I think this might have been the deepest conversation that we've had in a while.
It does kind of take the life out of you. It's
that's heavy.
I feel pretty good.
I think it felt therapeutic to me. Genuinely.
I really love your energy. He jumped in the cold plunge.
It's absolutely horrible.
He's up for stuff. He did the little
He tried to do the
cartwheel thing.
What is happening?
Y'all hearing this?
You've wanted more friends like this.
Guys, Bethany, Girl Defined, part of Girl Defined, half of Girl Defined. It's been so much fun getting to hang out with you guys and just learn more about you all, humanize you. I feel like we definitely did that. How can the family support what you are doing with Girl Defined, with the
Okay, so that's just their outro. So I'm gonna just let that play out. But I guess my final thoughts, again, it kind of shocks me at the very end when they're like, wow, this is the deepest conversation we've had in a while. To me, again, it also begs the question of well, what are y'all talking about then? Have you guys never talked about the difference between how can we recognize which of our audience members are just haters, and how can we recognize the ones that genuinely are giving us constructive feedback, and how can we internalize that, and how can we again, reflect on that. Like, it's just odd to me that it seems like they just haven't really talked about these things before. And I am glad that, you know, Dave did validate to Bethany, like, hey, I get that it is hard when people are hating on you so much, and when people have tried to take opportunities from you, like messing with sponsors and things like that, which again, do not take it real life. Do not mess with these people or harass them or send them chocolate pieces in the mail or anything like that. But can we and should we keep calling them out if we're Christians? You know, I mean, even if you're not Christian, right, you can still weigh in, of course. I think so, because again, I think it's important to keep having these honest and open talks. And maybe after hearing Dave's point of view, the three of them are a bit more open-minded. And I hope that they'll reflect on the things that Dave said, because I think he had a lot of wisdom, especially when he encouraged, you know, Paul and Morgan to work on befriending, and Bethany too, I guess, to work on befriending people that are different from them, and not always seeing it as like us versus them. And that's honestly some of the criticism that this whole series has gotten so far, even though they've only had 2 episodes, because they have interacted with people that are so similar to them. I mean, even at the end, you could see that like both Bethany and Morgan were pretty much like over the conversation, right? Like Dave was like, I feel great. This was a great moment for me. This was awesome to talk about these deep conversations. And like, yeah, it was really therapeutic to get all that off my chest. And then Bethany and Morgan were both like, like just sighing, and like they had just, you know, finished a marathon and they were just so glad it was over. So I hope that they will, you know, continue to press into Christians that are different from them. I mean, I would love to talk with them one day if they ever find my content. Paul and Morgan haven't blocked me yet, but Girl Defined has. So I'm definitely not going to get an email from them anytime soon inviting me to talk with them. But Paul and Morgan, if by some chance you happen to see this, I would love to chat with y'all. And yeah, just have some real honest, open talks similar to what you had with Dave. So anyway, speaking of conversations, I would love to continue the conversation with y'all down below. What did you think about all of this? You know, we brought up a lot of different topics about Christians living in an echo chamber, how Christian influencers present themselves on the internet, haters versus constructive criticism. So I would love to hear all of your thoughts on that and more. So I will see y'all down in the comments section. And of course, you know, I have to tap on all of the boring influencer things. You know, don't forget to like and subscribe. Like this video because it does help me know that you literally liked it and would like to see more content from me. And of course, subscribe to my channel if you want to be a part of the Lone Wolves Club and receive notifications from me anytime I upload. I would love to have y'all join my club and be a part of the conversation. So anyway, speaking of conversation, I will see y'all down in the comments section below. I promise you, I do respond. See y'all there.